5:30, and we are going to call the meeting for the Morton County Planning and Zoning to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oops. Sorry there, Carter.
And we will do the roll call. Berger?
Here.
Rohr?
Here.
Tomac is here. Wald?
Here.
Sackmeyer?
Yes.
L?
Here.
Buckley?
Here.
Braun is not here and not online. And Kist is Jesse online?
Yeah.
No, okay.
Actually,
No.
yeah. Yeah. We just can't hear him unless we turn.
Can you turn the... Jesse, are you online?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. All right, so approval of agenda and the previous minutes. Do I hear a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Second.
And then how about, all in favor?
Aye.
Approval for the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
With that, I will, Natalie, would you like to present the first item?
Our first item is the Cameron Mormon Scoria Pit Special Use Permit request. This is in the south half of Section 2, Township 138 North, Range 89 West. Applicant is Cameron Mormon. This is located about 2 miles southwest of Glen Ullin, west of Highway 49 and north of 138. So that's the edge of the ETA of Glen Ullin, going down 49, coming out, and then this is the area right there. The zoning for that area is agricultural. They're just designating roughly 9-acre area to mine scoria. They have had requests from various folks at times to pull scoria out of there, and of course that requires a special use permit. So they don't have any particular project that they are getting this permitted for, but just in general, as they may get requests here and there for scoria to be able to pull it out of there. The nearest residence is about 1/4 mile, so there's just the one residence nearby here. And then everything else around it is just undeveloped ag land. So staff is recommending approve with conditions limiting hours from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. I'm suggesting maybe put a maximum annual removal of cubic yards just so that it doesn't turn into some big project that we would want to mitigate later. So suggested maximum annual material removal of 16,000 cubic yards. And then the applicant should control dust as directed by the county engineer. And we can talk about that cubic yard ceiling. That's just an arbitrary starting point. And I can answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, Natalie, are there any other scoria pits in the county?
Oh yeah, lots.
Oh.
There are many. We have our own not too far south of this. And this would be just a small one.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, did the engineer say anything about load limits or anything?
So I did talk to road superintendent, county engineer, and they thought 16,000 cubic yards sounded fine, and they weren't too concerned, just, it's only a quarter mile, you know, on, to a paved, you know, hard surface road, so they weren't too concerned about it. But again, that, putting a limit on it makes it so that if there were gonna be a lot more loads coming in and out, then they would have to reapply for a bigger, or a more expansive project.
Any other questions for Natalie? I do have one, Natalie. Is this the type of thing that we usually, and I think we've talked about this in the past, but do we require reclamation plans?
And we don't require a whole plan, but that would be a good condition to add, yes. And just put that when it's done, which,
Just to have
That could
something on
be-
file.
that, I think that's a good idea. Yep, and just reclaimed to pre-project condition. Yeah.
Something along those lines,
Yes.
yeah.
Good call.
Any other questions for Natalie? With that, I'll open up the public hearing on this item. Would anyone like to speak on this item? Second call for public hearing on the Scoria pit. Third call for public hearing on the Cameron Mormon Scoria pit. And with that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, your wishes?
Madam Chairman, I would move to recommend approval of the special use permit to allow scoria mining from the designated area within the south section, half section of Section 2, Township 138 North, Range 89 West, as the site is in close proximity to the highway, being improved and is not in conflict with neighboring land uses, with the following conditions: hours operation, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., maximum amount of material that may be removed during a given year, 16,000 cubic yards. Applicant will control dust as directed by the county engineer, and a reclamation plan will also be added as a condition.
Second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Jesse?
Yep, aye.
Okay. And I will say aye.
Our second item is the Meadows off Highway 6 subdivision. This is in the northeast quarter of Section 33, Township 138 North, Range 81 West. The applicants are Norman and Sally Frederick, who own the property, and Steve Keelan would be the developer of the site. This is located about 2 miles south of the Mandan Airport on the west side of Highway 6. So Highway 6, and subject property is here. So that property is 73.23 acres. The current zoning is agricultural. The future land use designation is also agricultural for everything around it. All of these are residential lots that you see in yellow. The red one is a commercially zoned lot, even though it has a residence on it. All of this is designated as existing development in the future land use plan, so just continuing as it currently is today. So the plat that's being presented is dividing the property more or less in half. The north 35 acres would remain agricultural. The south lot 2, the request is to rezone that to commercial. There is an existing approach permitted by DOT. They would conserve that approach. So that's the site plan. The, Mr. Keelan would like to develop this into a wedding event venue, so it could be weddings, it could be other events. Coming in here, would have parking lot here. Event center would have a capacity somewhere between 450 and 500. And then there would be gravelled, I think gravelled, they can tell me if I'm wrong about that, private drives out to cabins, so that would be for overnight accommodation. Staff suggested the commercial zoning just because that is the only zone in which you can have an event center by right and that you can have overnight accommodation. So that was my suggestion, to rezone to commercial. Missouri West Water did provide their letter stating that they can provide water for this facility, not for fire suppression, just for operations, so toilets, laundry, kitchen, that kind of thing, that they could provide water for that use. Morgan Sioux does have 3-phase power available here, so that would be fine. The applicant's engineer is checking with NDDOT to see if they would warrant a traffic impact study, which probably. If NDDOT does want them to do that, that study would come, the results of that would come with the final plat. So this is the preliminary plat. Because it's a rezoning to commercial, we always do long form subdivision for rezoning to commercial. The applicant did provide letters of support from the Chamber, EDC, from the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and from Signature Events, which does weddings and events and that kind of thing. In staff's estimation, so we have surrounding land uses, this, everything that's kind of frosty green is zoned agricultural. We have Chad Burger's Bucking Bulls here. That is a feed lot. I drove out there a couple days ago and you can smell it. I mentioned that to the applicant, and the applicant said that was fine. There is kind of a hill here. There is this tree row here that provides a little bit of visual separation. I guess in terms of the feed lot, it was there first. So, you know, if that, it's not gonna prohibit them expanding. You know, what would prohibit expansion more so is the residences that are already existing there and existing on the south side. I think that would probably be the bottleneck for that. The commercial center, I don't think, other than just anyone talking about, you know, having a feedlot that close, but it doesn't preclude that from existing. So that has been considered. And in staff's estimation, because we have an ag lot on the north side here, that kind of, it's 35 acres, provides something of a buffer between a commercial use and the residences that are there. You do want commercial uses off of hard surface roads because that's, you know, what conveys traffic. So we would rather have it here than off, you know, miles and miles of county gravel road to get there. And this is far enough out of town, but close enough to town, I think, to be a reasonable destination for that volume of traffic. So, and also, you know, given with the feedlot there, this, in my opinion, from a planning standpoint, you don't want more houses. It's not really the right place for more residential development, so what do you do with it? I think a commercial enterprise there is appropriately cited, so that's why staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plat and then a zone change from ag to commercial on lot 2 only. And then I can take questions.
Any questions for Jackie, or not Jackie, Natalie? I'm looking at Jackie. Natalie, I do have a question. Did you talk to, not Custer Health anymore, but
Yeah,
Western Plains?
There's so much space here that you can make it work. I feel like I did talk to them. I didn't put it in here, I'm sorry. But when you've got that much acreage, you can
Right.
you can find a way to make it work.
So, Madam Chairman, I guess, is there gonna be sewer for the cabins?
You'll have to ask the developer.
Okay.
I think it's all gonna be, electric, water, sewer for
Okay.
all of those, but that would be a question for the developer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Natalie?
Do we have to worry about the drainage plan, or is that the next time?
Stormwater.
Stormwater next time?
That'll come with the final.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stormwater
Alright.
comes with the final plat.
Okay.
And I should say, it is the intention to hard surface that parking lot, which I appreciate. Instead of, we don't want people pulling onto mud and pulling out of mud on the state highway.
So the only part that's hard surface will be probably the parking lot, right?
I
And
think
the rest
so,
will be
but again,
gravel.
question for the developer. Yeah.
Natalie, can you switch to Jesse?
Yes.
He might have some questions.
Thanks,
Jesse?
Maria. Yeah, no, and maybe, is this one ILS? Maybe Mark can just touch on, I guess, what they're looking at for that.
Sorry, Jesse, we couldn't hear you because the microphone was going crazy. Can you say the first part again?
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Yeah, so I guess my questions are just around sanitary and septic, but I'll just let, I don't know if Mark can touch on that.
Yes, that'd probably be best.
Any other questions for Natalie before we open up the hearing? And with that, I'll open up the hearing, and when you come up to the microphone, please state your name and, how it's relative to you, just for the record, and we'll probably give you each 3 minutes to speak.
And someone did send me a letter they wanted me to read, so I'll just start it out with that. This is from Stephen and Deborah Crane of 4582 Trailblazer Loop in Mandan. We oppose this venue of Meadows off Highway 6. People made their homes in this area because it is a rural agricultural setting. We want the peace, privacy, and privileges associated with living in the country by distancing our families from the noise, crime, and traffic of commercial zoning, so we can maintain the basic rights of sportsmen and women, whether it pertains to hunting, raising, and riding horses, or protecting bucking bulls and all other livestock. In general, wedding venues are associated with loud music, fireworks, and excessive drinking, leading to actions resulting in poor and impaired judgment, such as trespassing and vandalism. This plus the heavy traffic on an already busy Highway 6 would put a strain on our law enforcement, and without 24-hour security, the quiet months create a perfect environment for illegal activities. Water is a huge issue. We live in the Maverick development and already experience a lack of water pressure when just watering the garden. There are 2 approved development projects which need to be provided with water before undertaking a venue with 40 cabins. We have all made large personal investments in our homes and do not want to see property values decrease or taxes increase. There is also a big concern as to whether or not such a venue could be properly staffed. Catering could demand for workers would probably be pretty seasonal, and weekends, not full-time employment. No one wants the project started and then abandoned due to lack of business or because it can't be properly maintained. We love our North Dakota prairie, but how many people are going to want their wedding or come?
That phone number. I know, but which one? 1646.
Whoever is talking, you need to mute your mics, please.
Let me go back here.
Mute your mics.
312.
We love our North Dakota prairie, but how many people are going to want their wedding or conventions in the middle of a windy prairie with a southerly wind blowing in the fragrance of a feedlot or dairy barns? Thank you for the opportunity to voice our concerns, Stephen and Deb Crane. So that's the only one I had to read.
Okay, thanks, Natalie. So with that, if anyone would like to come up to the mic?
Put that map back on. Yeah. Feedlot on there. I'm Chad Berger, and that's my feedlot right there, and not too far from there I have air dryer bins that'll be running in the fall. We haul manure right by there to our fields. It's a feedlot, and I mean, all fine and dandy. They say, "Oh, it's okay. We'll put it there anyway." Well, once they're there, then I'm going to hear the complaints. And then you got 32 cabins right next to my hayland. Right there, we'll be cutting hay. Like you say, they're partying at night. It's way closer than it looks on that map. They could be running around and scaring my bulls, and they're very, I don't know, high dollar precious animals. And I think it's very dangerous to have anybody that can just wander into that place. And, you know, all of our shops are there. I mean, it's just, I mean, to me, it's a big liability for me to have somebody, one of my bulls, they come over there and get run over by one of them bulls, or they're drinking and partying, and they say, "Hey, let's go look at the bulls," and it'll happen as sure as I'm standing there. And so I'm definitely against it. You got trucks on the other side of it, they'll be cranking up, and we crank up early in the morning. There's going to be machinery going. We chop silage in the fall. Trucks are going by, silage trucks, and it's all we're going to hear about is complaints about us for something that they're going to put in a pasture right next to us. So I'm dead set against it, and that's where I stand. So
Thanks, Chad.
thanks.
My name's Frank Thomas. I live in the property right to the north of there that is closer to this than even Chad's place. We have horses there also, and like Chad said, precious animals. And I just look, when I was a kid going to a wedding, we get together with our buddies, and when you're in town and stuff, you can go to the gas station or the grocery store. These guys are gonna look for some place to go. And like Chad there with his bulls and with my horses, all it takes is somebody to walk around and leave a gate open. Next thing you know, everything's out on the highway and somebody gets hit. I mean, there's numerous things that concerns me on this whole thing. The traffic. I mean, everybody knows what happens after a wedding dance, what goes on. I mean, driving from back there to Mandan. The cabins, I'm worried about the cabins. I mean, at night when they have prairie fires, I mean, with Chad's hayfield being on the other side, sparks flying, and I get it when you go camping and you're drinking and stuff, you don't have the responsibility. I'm worried about, you know, kids getting bored and wandering off and coming up and wanting to pet the horses, or like Chad said, going over to his place, and the liability of it. I mean, you know, if they come in my yard and a dog comes out or something and bites a kid or something, who is people gonna come after? I mean, the horses that I got, they're rope horses, they're expensive horses, and like I said, all it takes is one gate to be open and they're out on the highway. And even for law enforcement to come down to, when we have a problem with something, Morton County is so stacked up with stuff already too, it would be at another big pressure on them. The fire, like I said, Chad said it too, it's prairie. Everywhere you go around there, it's prairie, dry prairie. And like, you know, Chad said, garbage blowing around or whatever, we moved out of there to be in the country, not to have this, to to get zoned in that. I mean, yeah, that's my opinion. I mean, I live, like I said, between me and where this is proposed to go, there's a dam, stock dam down there. I mean, like I said, kids, they venture out, and next thing you know, they're in that dam, and then they're right across into our property. And I know young people don't have no known of boundaries and fences and stuff and where they go. They just curious kids and stuff. But when an accident happens, you know, who are they going to go after? I mean, there's places for a wedding venue, but I just don't foresee it being an ideal place to have one here. So, but yeah, I'm Frank Thomas, like I said, just live right on the north side of there. We're probably one of the closest ones to it, so yeah, I would be against it, so that's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Frank.
Hello, I'm Paul Hartman. I live right up in that corner there. And I guess the way I look at it, I think it's a recipe for disaster, because I know what it's like when you're drinking and things go on. There's fires, it gets dry out there. I honestly think it's a bad idea. I'm very against it. I mean, as far as kids and all that, we have kids. You got to realize there's going to be all kinds of different recipes of people out there. And I know how that goes. So I guess that's pretty much all I have to say. I'm totally against it.
Thanks, Paul.
Hello, my name is Jason Crane. I live at 2152 County Road 138A. My wife and I own the land adjacent to the west side of Frederick's property. We have lived here since November 16th, 2019, and we oppose this subdivision. And, you know, to kind of put things into perspective, like your proposed property along the highway, that's only a quarter mile long. I mean, that's 440 yards. So, like, where that venue would be to Frank's house, that's 220 yards. I mean, a couple football fields, I mean, that's not very far. And then it's only half a mile deep to the west. And that the hills on the south side are actually really narrow and really rocky. So you're going to be doing a heck of a lot of work to develop something like that, to put 8 cabins north of Chad's house and then 32 cabins to the southwest corner over there. And just to put things into proportion. So they border me for, a quarter mile on the west side. So we lived in Mandan for 7 years, which neither of us wanted to do, but buying land and moving out of town cost a small fortune. This is a quiet and clean neighborhood. That is exactly what all of us enjoy about this area. It has pheasants, grouse, geese, coyotes, deer, and antelope, and occasionally along with a large bald eagle. Around Frederick's land, we all have livestock except for AJ Renner. Some of us depend on our livestock to support our income, and others just for pleasure. I have many concerns about this venue and its 40 cabins. I thoroughly enjoy shooting sports and hunting, whether it be pistol, shotgun, or long-range rifle shooting. I literally have my long-range rifle target 10 yards west of Frederick's fence, which happens to be within 50 yards of your proposed cabins and playground. My property is only 925 feet wide and a half mile long, and this is the safest spot to shoot. If you approve this subdivision, you will strip me of my hunting and shooting rights on my own land, and that right is extremely important to me. So yeah, the land just on the west of the red striped land running north and south belongs to me and my wife. I spoke with Karen Garvey, the general manager at Missouri West Water Systems, on Monday morning about your proposed ideas. She informed me that Steve Keelan was approved for a standard subscription, but was not approved for water for 40 cabins or fire suppression. My other concerns are the increased property taxes. They are already 2.5 times higher than they were in 2019. North Dakota state setback standards suggest I should build a quarter mile of new barbed wire fence parallel to Frederick's fence and post it every 20 feet with no trespassing and don't feed or touch livestock signs. An offense like that isn't going to stop people or noise or garbage or campers dogs or pets that can run off and harass my livestock. In conclusion, a venue like this on this proposed piece of land would only be a nuisance and never-ending burden for the entire neighborhood. And all it's going to do is cause us all more problems, cost us all more money, and ruin everything we've all worked very hard for. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's AJ Renner. I live on the north side of this, in the middle. My reasonings for not liking this, I own 20 acres of land. Not one, I bought this land to be in the country, to be away from noise, things like that. Hunting rights, my place, I will no longer be able to shoot guns. My shooting range also shoots that way. You know, I understand if we get houses someday, I also can't have it, but now I can't shoot any guns. I can't hunt for birds, can't do any of that. Same with my shooting range. Burgers and Keitels butting up to it, all their land. They can't pheasant hunt in their own tree rows anymore because of that commercial property. Fredericks, he's got a tree claim just right off of there. He loves to hunt that. He might lose his hunting rights. The overnight stays. And when everyone's staying overnight, there's drinking. What are people going to be doing with ATVs driving around? Hiking, wandering, drinking and wandering. Animals, people and their pets. How many pets are going to be out there? 40 cabins. If there's 4 people in a cabin, could be 160 people there at a time on a weekend. We could have 160 random people sleeping in our backyard. Some of us leave on the weekends. In the summer, we go on vacations. I have hockey. I'm gone a lot of weekends. What's our security? What's our safety? People drinking, 500 people out at a venue. Only 120 can stay. 400 have to drive home, roughly. How many of those guys are drinking? Our highway now, how unsafe is it? My kid will be driving in 4 years. Now I have to think of him every night coming home. There's another wedding going on. How many people are on that highway unsafe out there? Traffic, turning lane. Did anybody look into a turning lane? The last development went in, they needed a turning lane on it. Noise, outside bands. What kind of bands are we going to have outside? Are we going to hear bands till 1 a.m. in the morning? Fireworks, are we going to have approval? They're going to have firework displays going on? Back to the livestock and stuff. Cool idea, don't like the location. If it was 10 homes versus 40 random weekend warriors, I probably wouldn't be at this meeting. 10 homes, I understand. There's new homes. They're homeowners we can trust. They live there forever. I'm asking them to keep this as ag land and not commercial for our consideration of living next to it.
Thanks, AJ.
Good evening. I'm Christina Crane. You heard my husband Jason talk earlier. This is our property right here. I am here to formally oppose the Meadows off Highway 6 subdivision. There are many reasons. I will list a few. First of all, the water supply. It was approved for a standard usage, which is 15,000 gallons a month. That is a 4-person household. That's what that is. That is not a 450 to 500 person venue on Friday night. You can ask anybody here that lives out there. We already have water and pressure issues, especially on the weekends when everyone is home. This commission, this board has already passed subdivisions that are not complete yet. And I think it is your civic duty to make sure that they have water before a venue like this goes in. Then there's the nuisance factors. There's the noise factors. Yes, this kind of shows it. Natalie says she drove out there. She knows just as well as everybody else sitting in this room, if you've gone out there, Chad's is the only place that has trees. You try to put trees there, it is a ravine. It will be 40 years before you don't see or hear anything. That is a huge issue. I have children, young children. Paul spoke about his kids. AJ has young kids. Now we go to bed early. We get up early. My kids don't sleep very well. So now I'm going to have to listen to that. You put 40 cabins out there. They're partying until all hours of the night. I've done it at a wedding. It is what it is. not the right spot for this. Not within a community where there's already established homes. Then there's the fireworks. I think I'm more concerned for Chad's hayfield than mine. He's closer. It is just a complete disaster if we are allowing fireworks all the time. The pets barking. I have horses. Mine probably aren't quite as expensive as Frank's because they're rodeoing on them. But my horses quite literally stand in this corner where they want to put a playground. All of them are friendly. I can tell you right now it would be double fenced if this was approved, which I hope it's not. But a barbed wire fence doesn't stop a kid from rolling under and petting my horses that are super friendly. All we gotta go is boo. Horses are taking off, kids are getting run over. Now I'm liable. How is that fair to me? Then there's the vector control. I don't mind the smell. I think cattle smell like money. But everybody else is gonna think it stinks. There's flies. You can't do anything about it. There's a stock dam. There's mosquitoes. Possibility of West Nile. Not to mention now we have food waste and trash. We're inviting coyotes, raccoons, skunks, not to mention rats. I'm sure Chad can attest to that. They're already there. Now we're going to migrate from Chad's and they're going to have a rodent issue.
Time's up, Christina.
Okay. Then there's the rezoning, and that's the only reason they want to do commercial. Because yes, it is not a residential has to have a setback from a feedlot, and commercial is the only one that doesn't. It is not a permanent residence, but if there's people there 24/7, it's pretty much a residence. Then there's the traffic, and traffic with young kids all around is just an increased risk of child abduction and strangers just being in our yards.
Thanks, Christina.
Good evening. I'm Renee Murish with Signature Events. I'm going to rock the boat just a little bit, and I'm okay with that. I have been an event planner for over 26 years and owning my own event space for 12 years and adding a venue to my own space for the last 6 years. And being an event planner for that long, I've worked at many venues with like this area, be it the Post, which has residentials around it, with the road and all that stuff. Venue 25, Blackleg Ranch, Austin, the August House out in Dickinson, and all these venues are thriving. And you know, I don't know what they obviously. To be fair, I don't know what they went through to get it all done, but in the end, they're thriving, and the people around them are thriving as well. So you guys do have my letter in your packet, but I just want to read the letter out loud for the record. I am in strong support of a development of a new venue in Morton County. With over 26 years of experience as an event planner, 12 years owning my own successful event planning business, and adding a venue to our business 6 years ago, I have a deep understanding of what communities need to attract, host, and sustain successful events. Morton County currently lacks a venue capable of accommodating 300 to 500 guests. This is a significant gap in our local infrastructure. Time and time again, large weddings, corporate gatherings, trade shows, community events, and others are either scaling down and moving outside our community simply because the proper space doesn't exist. The demand is just not wanted, it is an extreme need. This proposed venue could be truly unique and unlike anything currently available in our area, designed to capture the North Dakota landscape authentically and beautifully, and would offer an experience that is both evaluated and deeply rooted in our region's character. In addition to the individual lodging on the property is a game changer. On-site accommodations significantly increase event bookings, extend guest stays, and thrive tourism revenue. It allows families, corporations, organizations to gather in one cohesive space, creating both convenience and a memorable experience. Beyond weddings, which is undoubtedly a thrive in this setting, the event has potentially to serve as a hub, corporate events, family reunions, trade shows, conferences, retreats, public celebrations. It would fill a critical void while positioning Mandan as a destination rather than a pass-through location. From a professional standpoint, I can confidently say that venues of this scale and uniqueness drive economic growth. increase vendor opportunities, and elevate the entire local event industry. This project presented vision, foresight, and investment in the future of our community. So with that, I would highly recommend that this be a pass. And I do know that the developers, they think of all this stuff, and they are good people. They're good humans. And so this is something that Mandan, not only just Mandan, but our county is in dire need of.
Thanks.
Hello, my name is Eric Crane. I live in High Chaparral Estates off of County Road 138. I'd just like to point out that pretty much from here, the proposed area and everything south is all agricultural land. Trucks have to come to town. People haul hay through, people haul grain through, people haul cattle through. It's hard enough trying to turn when going northbound on County Road 138 when there's a line of cars coming. There's multiple times where I've already had to stop and wait my turn to not cause an accident and almost get rear-ended in the process. Having this many more cars on the road are just going to increase that problem. So I'd really like to, I build barbed wire fence for a living, and a lot of what I do is south of here. I'd really just like to go home at the end of the day and not worry about getting hit on the road. Excuse me. Yet alone somebody trying to leave this venue and pull out in front of a truck that they didn't see or think that they had enough room. 100,000 pound trucks don't stop on a dime. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Susan Beeler. I'm a Mandan resident, and I was not going to speak on this particular issue, but I have to. I have to because Steve Killen is not a good neighbor. He recently purchased property in the condo association that I belong to, and Carter Berger also belongs in that same association. What he did is short of just being negligent or fraudulent, I'm not sure. But what he did is he wanted to get the bid on our building after he found out that we needed a new roof. That building project was going to be $100,000. When it came time for our condo association election, he took the ballots that I had made up because I was secretary treasurer. He took those ballots and he changed them, and he put his name for vice president, secretary, and treasurer on it so that he could manipulate the rest of the elderly board members to agree to give him the roof project. He got the roof project. We lost our insurance on our condo association building. The project was what they said cost us to lose that insurance. So he's not a good neighbor in how he treated that situation, but it started as soon as he moved in. Our association had voted in our rules and regulations to not allow pets and not allow smoking. Steve has renters in the property that's directly across the hall from me, and he allowed 2 big dogs to come in. And so I went to Steve and I said, well, in our rules, we don't allow dogs. And the dog had pooped on the sidewalk. He told me to get a DNA test to prove it. We have a video camera that shows the dog pooping, and he refused to do anything about it until it got so contentious that we sat down in a meeting, and then I said, well, then have the people go out the back instead of pooping on the sidewalk that we share together. I'm telling you, also that in Mandan on Collins Avenue, if you drive by his property that's across from the Mandan Eagles, he's not following code. For whatever reason, he has a door that goes to nowhere. I remember that property coming up in front of the city of Mandan to be rezoned.
You have 10 seconds, Susan.
I remember it to come up to be rezoned. Steve Killen is a bad neighbor, and any of these issues that these people have talked about, he will tell them it's their fault. He will not resolve it. He's not a good neighbor.
Thanks, Susan. Second call for public hearing. Can you check online, Natalie?
So just a reminder to everyone online, if you want to speak, you can unmute yourself and speak when the chairwoman calls for comments.
And if so, please state your name and how you relate to this issue. Third call for public hearing.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Abe Almer with Independent Land Surveying and Engineering. I'm working with the developer on the layout and just kind of parking requirements, everything else. Just a couple things that I can clear up. You know, we have been in contact with the NDDOT. They have the layout and they came back and said, yes, we'd like a traffic study done. If that traffic study warrants a turn lane, we would have to put the turn lane in to do the project. If it does not warrant the turn lane, the state will not allow that project, or will not allow us to add a turn lane without it being warranted. As for the sewer, Jesse, I know that was one of your questions probably. There is plenty of land out there. These would be probably 4 units per little sewer system. Every 4 units roughly would have their own septic tank and drain field. They're not going to be used that much because they obviously are a little bit considered seasonal because you're not going to have an event there every week. I mean, for business sake, I hope if it does go in, I hope he does have an event every week. For stormwater, there's plenty of room on that site to mitigate the stormwater requirements. There is some wetland on the northeast corner up by that, or wetland mapper does call out some wetland on the northeast. We're staying well away from that. Wetlands aren't fun to deal with. As for traffic, we were looking at, I believe Steve was planning on paving the road in, paving the parking lot, and then gravel access to the cabins. Personally, I can tell you, as an engineer in Morton County, I have been, over the last probably 8 years, I have had 6 different people come in and try to do a venue like this. And every one of them either gets shut down because of water, of fire suppression requirements, different things like that, and none of them have come to fruition. So I just wanted to bring that fact to you, that 6 different people over about 8 years of my engineering in the last 8 years have tried and stopped. So it's just something that wanted a fun fact for you guys to know. Any questions on the site technically or anything like that you guys would have?
Does anybody have any questions for Abe? I do, Abe. Fire suppression. Do you know what the developer plans on doing for fire suppression for that big of a building?
Yeah, it's the same thing that we kind of did at MDU Training Center and Central Dakota Humane Society. You put in a big tank and you put in a pump system.
And would the water be filled off of Missouri West, or would it be hauled in?
For that type of system, it could be either one. It could be that, or it even could be a well water for fire suppression. There's no rules for that.
Right, and those are pretty expensive systems.
Yes, but they actually came down in the last 5 or 6 years. They're a quarter of the price that they were.
And then you did say that the each cabin unit would be 4 cabins per septic system?
Yeah, that's why they're kind of clustered like this, is to try to spread them out a little bit and not put them in, you know, the way the layout was about 4 cabins. There was one area straight north of Chad Berger's place that we were looking at having, I think it was 8 cabins in that corner around a cul-de-sac there. That was kind of for the wedding party, if that makes sense. And then all the other cabins to the west were more for, you know, family and guests.
Anybody else have any questions for Abe?
Yeah, do you live there?
Not from the public, sorry, just on the board. Jesse, did you have any questions for Abe?
Good, thanks.
Okay. I think we're good, Abe, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
If you would like to come up real quick.
Wait till everybody else is done.
AJ Renner, one more question was, does anybody know what the venue? Is it a pole barn? Is it a steel structure? What are we going to be looking at if this would go through? Cabins, are they sheds? Since they're seasonal, are they wood log cabins? What are we going to see out there? We haven't seen any ideas on anything
I think
before anything's approved.
We'll let the developer or the engineer answer that question.
Commissioner's Chair, Steve Keelan, developer, somewhat maybe. So what we got opposing is, I do have a bunch of pictures, I don't know how to put it up there, but I don't know. So this would be somewhat cabins, but a little bit smaller. This is just a picture that we took offline, but they would be somewhat similar to this here for all the cabins in the clusters, what Abe was talking about. And yes, we did meet with Custer Health or Western Plains, whoever it is, with Lana, and she already kind of engineered the whole system as far as the sewer, septic, and everything like that. So this is the venue that we're proposing. The blueprint's already drafted up, and obviously that's where it's at right now with everything. So no, AJ, to you, it's not a pole barn. Okay,
We haven't seen anything. That's why
well,
I don't know what
that's why we're at preliminary. You know, so it's all preliminary. You know, it ain't a $200,000 project. You know, it's about a $6 million project. So, I mean, I'm not gonna put a shed in the backyard and, you know, ask people to come out and dance. So, yeah, that's what we're proposing. Any other questions you guys have for me?
Any other questions from the board? Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Last call for public hearing.
I responded.
You have 30 seconds, Chad.
Okay, I won't take that long. The gal that came up and is all for this and stuff, she talked about the Black Lake Ranch. Well, they're fortunate enough to have 10,000 acres of land that surround their venue, okay? They ain't got no neighbors. The post out there, that ain't gonna hold, if you have a deal there, if you're lucky if you ever have 100 people, and it's basically in town anymore in Mandan. Out here, all my yard is just right next to that place, and I have 2 houses there. I have shops there. I've got grain bins there. I've got dairy barn there. I've got all these that you get all these people staying in these cabins. North Dakota's pretty famous for a north or northwest wind. That's gonna take me. That'll take me out anytime. And there's kids. I don't care. That will.
Time's up, Chad.
That's it.
Thanks, Chad. And with that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners?
Chairman, just a couple comments. You know, this will not be the first time this board looks at places where people want to get out of the city, they want to get out into a country type environment, you know, have a kind of, not really secluded, but an area that, where they have the sameness of objectives, how they live, how they build and things like that. And then something comes along, maybe could be a wind farm, and then we have something that encroaches upon that particular privacy and the aesthetics of where they're at. So, you know, we have been dealing with that problem over time, and it becomes rather difficult for us because we have to decide between, you know, the people that are living there, what they want, what they like to have. They've been there for a while, then a new other project comes in and they want something, and they're often in conflict. They're not always, sometimes they're amenable, but sometimes they're not. But just a little comparison, I go back years down in the city wastewater treatment plant. It was there, Kiss Livestock. There was nothing around. In fact, I moved down a place, there was nothing out there. And then, of course, the houses built in, and a lot of people moved in, and then people started complaining, well, just a minute, that wastewater treatment plant stinks. When it's from a certain direction, it stinks. We want the city to do something about it. Well, just a minute, they were there first. You're not going to pick up, in fact, I think a new wastewater treatment plant is about $120 million, but that was there first, and the people moved in. I would hope that they realize that when you live next to a stink plant, it's going to stink. But, you know, the city has done things. It spent a bunch of money trying to remedy through different chemicals and did a fairly good job of lowering that problem, but the problem, you know, always existed. So you get those conflicts within that, and you know, where people move into it, they got their expectations, then others will have other expectations, and of course the board here, we're kind of put in the middle of some of that, but I just wanted to point out those particular issues.
Thanks, Dennis. Any other comments from the board? That's a good idea with this one.
Madam Chairman, if I may,
Sure.
this is the preliminary hearing. Basically, the only sole question at the preliminary hearing is does this project, for the most part or for all the part, currently fulfill Morton County standards? It does. Some of the things talked about today were good to talk about, but some of them then become more of a political question than they are against rules and regulations. This whole project's going to be decided by water. This isn't the first wedding venue that we've had. The one wedding venue, I believe, was south on Highway 6, and
1806,
was
Andy.
that, was it, was
1806, yes, Andy.
Okay.
Sorry to correct you, but
The
yes.
Hoop Barn one. That one, I was at Morton County Water Board meeting many times when that developer came in. And there's good water engineers on that board. During that time, they knew how much water it would take to run the ice machines, how much water it could take for possible air conditioning issues, how much water to flush the various toilets. They took in all the water considerations for a fire suppression system, and they would say, yes, you qualify for one hookup, but you're not going to have a water to run that facility. Now, that developer became very angry at those water board meetings and was demanding that they should upgrade the water system to fulfill his project, which the water board said they would not do. This project's kind of in that same way. If there's not enough water, the project will either have to be scaled down or it's gonna have to come up with some other type of way to have the water to fulfill its needs, which might include they can build the wedding venue, but not the cabins, or at least not at this point, until water is more readily available. The whole thing is gonna be decided upon water. The profitability of the project is not a county concern. That is to the developer. If it's not profitable and it fails, it's on the developer or the owner. It is not on the county, and it's not even a consideration the county should be making. This is, right now, at this point, it is strictly about the rules, regulations, and was this a fair hearing, which it was. If this is, would be declined now, it's gonna go to the county commission immediately. My assumption would be is that the county commission's gonna send it right back here and say, make a decision. I think it would be a fair assumption. It's gonna get sent back. I'm not seeing a reason to decline it at this point. There's gotta be a second hearing. Everybody will be able to visit again. There'll hopefully be more water information and sewer information present at that meeting. So based on that, based strictly on the rules, not to mention there's that loophole in the rules that if it's along a paved state highway, it's supposed to be approved because we're pushing commercial development to state highways and paved roads everywhere we could. Then that lessens the county expenditure for road maintenance. Based on that alone, it's going to require that this project should be at least approved at this hearing.
This is Betsy, can you hear me?
That's really... Yes, we can hear you.
Am I shouting in the room?
No, I think there's issues with the volume.
Okay, is it okay now?
Yep, it's good now.
So I guess, and maybe I'm looking to Natalie for some input here. Andy, generally, agree with what you said. Other than, my interpretation of what we adopted in the comprehensive plan isn't as straightforward as, just because something's along a highway, that we sort of by default are willing to rezone ag land to commercial. I think it means we're more open to it. I think we still have to consider the surrounding land uses and all of that stuff. And I guess just out of respect for the neighboring ag land and the neighboring residences, 40 cabins, 500 person events, that's a lot. And this is not right on the outskirts of Mandan, right? It's a ways out there. So I guess all I'm getting at is I do think my interpretation is that we still have discretion on that.
Any other comments from the board? Natalie, I do have one question. How many other commercial properties are in this area besides the
That little one?
southwest corner? Like even if you zoomed out further?
Yeah, I wish I could maybe get my phone. The closest things are, so if you go north of there, we have Maverick Estates, which is.
Is there a commercial? There's no commercial there.
But let's see, south of Maverick, there's the substation, which is, it's not zoned industrial, but it's kind of industrial. And there's a industrial lot north of Maverick that doesn't have anything on it, but it's still zoned industrial. So there's a little here and there. And then you have the airport.
And then south of here, it's probably down by St. Anthony even, right?
That would kind of be the first commercial. The Schmidts have their RV park down there. You got the dairy. You've got the commercial or limited industrial park, down by St. Anthony.
And then east and west, there's really nothing. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess what I would say is when Pat Koski brought his project for a wedding event center, that was on 139A. And we approved that at the preliminary hearing. He never went through with it. At least, maybe I'm not recalling, but I'm pretty
Yep.
sure that came here.
Right.
And we
Mhm.
approved, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was on a gravel county road, or does it turn to gravel there? Yeah, it's gravel.
Yes, it's gravel
Yeah,
there.
it's gravel. So, I mean, this, in the sense of hammering roads, you know, I would rather it's on a state highway than on our county gravel road, just for traffic concerns. It's better off on a paved highway, I guess.
Do you remember what the capacity of that one west?
They hadn't
Savannah?
gotten that far into it, but I think it was gonna be large, you know, 400, 300, 400,
Right.
yeah.
And if I recall right, that lot is like 35 or 40 acres.
It was a weird shape. They wanted to break it up. They actually, I think they're gonna bring that forward to split into two, soon. But it was, yeah, it was a larger, I mean, it was like, I think it wasn't even this big. This is 70 acres. That was.
Right, but they're looking at splitting this one in two. so
Oh,
it'd
sure,
be-
and leave your ag lot.
And the
then
ag lot
have
would be
your-
on the north side, and
Yep.
then this commercial lot would be on the south
Yep.
side.
Yep. And I will say, this was in my staff report, like Abe said, I've had probably 6 or 7 people in my office since I've been here saying, I want to make a wedding event center. The closest we got was the Chances on 1806, and they didn't even hire, they had like a friend who was kind of sort of doing their site plan. They didn't really have, you know, a plan for fire suppression exactly. You know, they kind of came in cold on that one, and this is the first plan I've seen where somebody has gone to the lengths of hiring somebody to actually put a site plan together and do it, you know, the way we would want, with detail, I guess. So.
Right. Commissioners, your wishes?
I do have a question. So this is about 73 acres, a little bit more. And so if this gets turned down, what if they decide to break it into a development, which would be about 50-some homes?
They'd have to come back for replanting.
I know, but would the water use be less or more if water's the issue?
Well, and, you know, I talked to Karen specifically because the letter said a standard account. And I said, what does that mean? And I said, you know, this is an event center. And she said, that's fine, we can serve an event center, even though the letter says a standard account. So, you know, again, we have all the conversations about water, so maybe next month we can get that in writing.
So, to add to Becky's comments, so then, is she saying that it was just for the event center and not the cabins?
And that's the
or-
thing, at that point in time, I think I had sent out my packet that had the cabins in it, but, and so I'm assuming she knew, but I don't think we said cabins, but she was very aware that it's a 500-person event center. So, certainly before next month, you know, if this comes back, we'll definitely clarify if the intention was to be able to serve cabins or not.
Okay.
And that would be, I guess the developer can say so, but I think that was gonna be a phase 2 anyway. Like the event center was gonna be first phase, cabins might be second phase, so. And I should point out too, you know, a rezoning to commercial means a rezoning to commercial, any kind of commercial. So even though this is a proposal for an event center, once you rezone it, it's rezoned for commercial.
And they are rezoning for lot 1 and 2?
Nope, just lot 2.
Just lot 2, so it's gonna have a jog in it.
Yeah. Because of that stream that's there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question on the acres on that?
The public hearing's closed, so we can't take any more comments.
I mean, if there is a discrepancy on the letter that you sent us.
But The public hearing's closed. Sorry, Frank.
So I guess I will concur with Commissioner Zachmeyer that if we deny it here and it comes back to the county commission, which Commissioner Zachmeyer and I are a part of, we'll send it back here. So, I mean, that's what'll happen, correct? And-
Because property rights is gonna be coming into it again too, and it's property rights of the owner of the property is what is normally decided upon.
Well, and we don't have all the information that we need
No.
either.
No, we do not. That's why they're gonna want to, you know, I can see the other commissioners saying there needs to be a second hearing, send it back.
Would it be worth the idea to entertain tabling this?
Excuse me?
Would it be worth the idea to entertain tabling this?
We definitely would have that option, but then it's the first item on the agenda, the very next planning and zoning meeting.
Right.
Well, Madam Chairman, hearing the issues of how we should negotiate this and bring it forth, I'm going to make the motion so it comes back and then we can revisit it, get the other information. I move to recommend approval of the preliminary plat of the long-form subdivision known as Middle Off Highway 6 subdivision and a zoning map amendment from agricultural to commercial on Lot 2 only, as proposed use is compatible with surrounding land use and appropriately situated along a state highway.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
So just to be clear, Jackie, we are motioning it for second for discussion at the next planning and zoning meeting,
No,
or is that not?
no, so there's discussion on the motion that was made.
Okay. Dennis?
Are you calling for the vote?
No,
No,
she did
No.
not.
I'm sorry.
I'd have to amend my
Discussion.
motion, though, to allow for that stipulation, is that correct?
For what stipulation, I'm sorry?
Or that we have discussion on the motion?
No, you don't have to amend it. We would discuss the motion as made. So if there's any more discussion we want to make on the motion, that's what could
Well, that
happen
would
now.
come about in rules of order, that would still be available, right? If I make a motion and there's a second, then.
Now we're in
there-
discussion.
There can be discussion.
And then it's either call the vote, or if you want to make an amendment to your motion, but I don't know what amendment you'd want to make.
So Maria, we're in discussion, right?
Yes.
So I guess I'm just gonna add to Andy and Jackie that, you know, my concern with this is more about its location next to certain ag uses and, you know, residential land uses rather than utilities. So I understand the concern that commission might send it back, but I guess I'm just telling you now that, you know, I feel more opposed to it, and to get to that next step, the applicants have to spend a notable amount of money doing, you know, additional engineering and whatnot. So I also don't want to just push it forward if my concerns aren't related to whether or not there's water. And I want to be careful with the precedent that if any, you know, as long as there's water along the highways, are we saying ag land can flip to commercial just no problem? I guess I have some concern with that approach. So anyways, that's all I have.
Thanks, Jesse. So now do I do a roll call?
Somebody has to call for the vote. So is there, you have to ask for any more discussion.
Is there any more discussion? Without any more discussion, I'll take the roll. Zachmeyer?
Yes.
L?
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Rohr,
Yes.
Wald,
No.
Kist,
No.
and I vote no. Motion passes.
We should say the next meeting, the commission, it'll come, excuse me,
It'll come to the next county.
county commission meeting then, correct?
No, it'll come to the next planning and zoning meeting, which will be the end
April
of
22nd.
April.
Okay.
22nd?
Yep,
Okay.
For the second hearing.
for the second hearing. And I think in the letter I sent, did I say that date? April 20, yeah, so that was in the letter that got sent out, that there would be another meeting, April 22nd. And because if it wasn't, then I can send out a new letter. But if it is, then I send out one letter.
Right. So, it'll be on the next
P&Z.
planning and zoning meeting.
Yes.
Madam Chairman, a good thing too is we can digest what's being said and, you know, being open to more too. It would help us with the second hearing, at least that's my opinion.
Right, yes.
As Madam Chairman, as one commissioner formerly said, we get another bite of the apple in April. So
Yes,
that's the way it works.
yes. So, on to the second item. Natalie.
Our next
Third,
item is.
actually, sorry.
Third, yep. Our next item is the Tokash Timber Haven 4th subdivision. This is in the northeast quarter of Section 8, Township 137 North, Range 80 West. The applicants are Tom Tokash and multiple applicants. So currently, so this is the outline, the pink outline of the proposed subdivision. You can see that everything around it is residential, except for on the east side, that's non-conforming ag. So within this subdivision, we do have a couple swaths that got zoned to residential when the county did their zoning map, their remake of the zoning map in 2014. And those outlines are based on the lot lines that were drawn into GIS at that time, which were not terribly accurate. When those lot lines got drawn in, there was so much gray in the deed record that I think they just kind of gave up and they made some squares. And so it's technically zoned non-conforming ag and residential. The request is to put it into estate. That was staff's suggestion because two of these lots are not buildable. The other lot, we'll get into it, but so the request is to go from what it is now into estate. And as a reminder, estate is essentially ag without an entitlement to construct a residence on it. It was intended for small pieces of land that might transfer, but that weren't really developable. So that's what that zoning category is for. So this entire subdivision, as well as almost all the surrounding lands, are in the special flood hazard area. The entire thing is in the special flood hazard area. This is 2.57 acres. Okay, so this is the subdivision with the dark line around it. There. So we have lot 1, lot 2, lot 3. So, actually, pull this out. Okay, so lot 1 is proposed to be 1.5 acres, which would be a conforming lot eligible for residential, but we do not want to encourage residential subdivisions in the flood hazard area. That's well established in our comp plan. We have one other example where we did approve a residential lot where part of the lot was in the special flood hazard area. This was up on Schlosser. It was Eden's subdivision, where the part where a home could go was out of the special flood hazard area. So the county did pass that. So I told the applicant, I suggested that if somehow they can get a LOMA from FEMA to officially take this lot out of the flood hazard area or a significant portion. Staff is suggesting it might be appropriate to give a conditional zoning approval that wouldn't become valid until that LOMA, until the applicant got that LOMA. So in short of that, it would be estate. So that is an acre and a half. The other two, so lot 2 is 0.61 acres and lot 3 is 0.46 acres. So neither of those are conforming, which is why staff is suggesting to put them in estate. The whole purpose of this subdivision is just to clarify lot boundaries, because there are multiple lots within that subject area that have changed hands, that were divided with descriptions that may not have been terribly clear. It's difficult, I guess it's just difficult to figure out where the property boundaries are, and this is the first time that we would have that the county, that the public record would have a plat to define where these property boundaries are, which in staff's estimation is an important thing to do, because as the parties that own these now, you know, if it passes into other hands, you get more and more owners that are farther and farther away from the origin of these properties, and it's not unheard of to find properties that can't even be bought or sold because you have too many owners and you don't know where your property boundaries are. So staff is in favor of this subdivision to clarify lot boundaries, just purely to clarify the lot boundaries. So nothing happens to access. Everything that's on this plat is just documenting access that already exists. So we have Dad's Drive here, which runs from Tokash Timberhaven. So this is Timberhaven Drive, turns into Dad's Drive. This strip is only 20 feet wide. It is a public right-of-way. That was established on the original Tokash Timberhaven plat because there were lots here that existed that needed access, and so the county allowed that right-of-way to happen and accepted it, but it's only 20 feet wide. There is an access easement to the benefit of all, so these were called the cabin lots. They go even further south. And there's a 20-foot access easement that goes all the way along all of those cabin lots, with the exception of 50 feet down south, but it's not part of this plat. So anyway, 20 feet, and that is just legal access. There are fences, there are trees in the way over portions of that, which then that becomes a civil matter. If somebody can't access their property and they have legal access, they can bring that to court to gain access to their property. So again, we're doing nothing. This plat does nothing to change that access. It's just documenting the fact that it exists and recalling it here. On this, because this is a preliminary plat, so this is a long form subdivision, because it has 3 lots, but because there's no development going on, we're not, the county engineer granted a waiver for stormwater management, but this will have 2 hearings. So it'll be this month, next month. So in the preliminary plat stage, we're looking at details, we're looking at existing structures, we're looking at gravel surfaces. So this shows the gravel surface that goes along here. That has been there, and it did shift, it has shifted over time, but for the most part that has been used by lot owners here since 1982 or thereabouts. In all likelihood, if somebody wanted to bring that forward in for summary judgment for prescriptive easement, I'm pretty sure that would be granted. So this isn't legal access, the gravel surface, but it is functional access that people do use. So there is a access and utility easement that extends for 33 feet past the end of the right-of-way of Dad's Drive. The surveyor can maybe explain how that came about, but according to the surveyor, that is present. There is documented on this plat an easement that's 26 feet wide here, spreads out to 46 feet wide here. In staff's review of the record of that, I don't think, I guess, I think that's questionable whether that access easement was a valid access easement. So staff is suggesting for the final plat, we take that off. And it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Whatever is in the record is in the record. We're not changing what's in the record. Staff is just suggesting we take that off so that we don't perpetuate something that may not be accurate. The rest of it is accurate, at least in the surveyor's estimation, staff's estimation. So that's kind of a summary of the access situation. Staff did bring this plat to the road commission on March 18th and presented this and said there's no way that we're going to get what we would call adequate access. According to our policies, new subdivisions need to have an 80-foot wide corridor and constructed to a county standard. That's never going to happen here. And so I guess what I would say is this isn't creating lots that don't already exist. Those lots and that access and that problem already exists. What this plat does is clarify lot boundaries and reduce nonconformity, because it's taking many little lots and consolidating them from many lots into 3 lots and clarifying property boundaries, which I think is essential to do in this area. So for those reasons, staff is recommending approval, and again, recommend that access easement just not be shown, this one, not be shown on this plat, and potential conditional approval of a rezoning for lot 1 to residential only if the applicant or the lot owner were to successfully obtain a LOMA from FEMA to take it out of the flood zone. So with that, I will take questions.
Any questions from the board for Natalie?
And I'll leave it here in case people need to reference the map, and then I'll switch it so in case Jesse has questions.
Any questions from the board from Natalie? I do have one. On lot 3, there's a little building shown there. What kind of building is it?
So it's there's a resident that lives there. It is the type of structure the tax equalization office does not assign a value to that structure.
Okay.
That's the shape it's in.
And it's in the flood zone?
All of it's in the flood zone. That was built without a building permit.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Probably old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maria,
Jesse?
can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
So Natalie, I do have a question on lot 1. Maybe you can just explain it to me. Is there a reason that we can't rezone it residential? I mean, and let the FEMA requirements dictate? I mean, essentially they wouldn't be able to build on the lot until they received a LOMA or otherwise met FEMA's requirements. But I guess just wondering why we would have to mess with that for zoning.
So I definitely do not want to set a precedent that we're making new subdivisions, residential subdivisions in the flood hazard area. Our long-range plan, that's the policy in the long-range plan, and I think that's a slippery slope. So if part of that lot were taken out, or the whole lot were taken out, then it's no longer in the flood zone, and then it would be a better situation to approve a residential zoning there. And the applicant is aware of that limitation, and they know that they can't build on it if it has estate zoning.
So I guess just to, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's a fine approach. Just pointing out that they can't build on it anyway,
right?
Even if it had residential zoning, right, until it got the LOMA.
Nope.
So only concern is then they'd have to bring it back.
That's not,
right?
Yeah, that's not accurate. They couldn't, with the estate zoning, they can't put a house on it.
Right, if it was zoned residential, but they don't receive a LOMA because it's in the 100-year floodplain, we wouldn't issue a building permit.
We would.
My point.
We would. So if it's in the flood zone, they just have to go elevate and go through the, requirements for floodplain development. If it's zoned residential, even if it's completely in the flood zone, they can build on it. So that's what we're trying to avoid.
Okay, so you're saying if they built it up, okay, but you want a full Loma, so you want a portion of the lot fully removed from the floodplain?
Correct. I think that's only appropriate here because this is so flood prone.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me. I understand now.
Yeah, and then I guess the history on it, really, so many of these lots should not have been created because it's in the flood zone, so there's only one way in and out. It's not a safe place, really, to be having a subdivision and, the past is the past, it's there, but we really should not be supporting further development in that area, in staff's estimation.
Yeah, no, I agree with your approach.
Okay.
It makes sense to me now.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board for Natalie? With that, I'll open up the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on this item, please come up and state your name and relevance to the project.
Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Tom Tokash. I am the applicant and owner of Lot 1, which is currently 5 parcels to create 1.5 acres to get to the 65,000 square feet. This is not my first time here with this property, and hopefully it's my last. I had conversation with Natalie, and I appreciate her due diligence. We came to an agreement that the Loma would be required. If you look at the map, the land across the road is already in Zone X. My lot is elevation 1631. In order to get to Zone X, I need to be 1631.4. So it's probably 10 to 20 loads of dirt, but at $1,000 a load, there's more cost. So she thought I should bring it up to grade first and bring it to you. I would like, rather than spend the money and be denied, I would like some assurance that all this work was going to pay off, and I will ultimately end up with a conforming lot that's owned residential. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions for Tom? Nope. Thanks, Tom. Second call for public hearing. Would anyone online like to speak on this item?
Good evening, Commissioners. Mark Isaacs with Independent Land Surveying and Engineering. You want to put that back on? Since Natalie brought it up, I'll explain the addition to Dad's Drive. So it's the hatched area that would be there south of Dad's Drive. So when the cabin lots were created, well, and some other auditors' lots before Tokash Timber Haven was approved in '82, they created an access and utility easement for this area. In doing that, they described that starting at the section line that runs east-west to the north of here, and then they came south 33 feet and then described around it to encompass all of it. When they did the Tokash Timber Haven subdivision, they described that same description going along the section line. They did not come south to 33 feet. So that creates, so they didn't come far enough south with the plat, so that 33 feet that extends south is still there by that easement. Did that make sense?
Yes,
Kinda.
thanks, Mark.
Other than that, I would entertain any questions that you would have.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
Third call for public hearing. Would anyone online like to speak on the item? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, any discussion or wishes?
I guess, Maria, I have another question. This might be for Natalie. So is the proposal that a recommendation here would have the Lot 1 Loma item as a condition?
That's what staff is suggesting. I'm suggesting make a second motion that it would be approved residential zoning only if and when the applicant can produce for the county a valid Loma for that property. Because FEMA may have other concerns other than just elevation. You know what I mean? Because that,
So that makes sense. My comment was going to be if we're going to put it into a motion. I'm thinking after hearing Tom talk, are you sure it's a Loma and not a Lomar F that would apply?
actually, yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It would probably be a Lomar F.
Okay, and I was only going to say, I wonder if we want to keep it a little more ambiguous.
Yeah, that would probably be best. Permission,
Yeah,
like adequate or official permission from FEMA to remove it from the special flood hazard area.
Yeah, and I defer to you. I mean, but just a thought.
Yeah, no, I like that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse.
So he wants to do 2 motions.
Yes, it looks like there's 2 motions. One for the estate and the other for the flood hazard area.
Madam Chairman, I would move to recommend approval of the preliminary plat of the long-form subdivision known as Tokash Timber Haven Forest Subdivision and a zoning map amendment from agricultural to residential to estate district. As the proposed subdivision reduces the overall zoning nonconformity of the subject properties and direct the applicant to remove the 46-foot access easement document number 431355 from the final plat.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. L.
Yes.
Buckley.
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
Rohr.
Yes.
Wald.
Yes.
Zachmeyer.
Yes.
Kist.
Yes.
And I vote yes. The first motion passes.
Madam Chairman, I would recommend approval of, for Lot 1 to be rezoned to residential if and when the lot owner is granted a letter of map amendment from FEMA to remove the entire lot or a portion of the lot from the special flood hazard area such that there is adequate room for a residential structure to be built entirely outside the special floodplain hazard area.
And just a clarification, did we want to remove that Loma language?
I think if it is worded as, all that was great, just official permission from FEMA to remove it, because it says remove it from the special flood hazard area, so just instead of Loma, official permission from FEMA.
Okay.
I think that could work.
That would be good.
Amended? Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
With that, I'll call the roll. L.
Yes.
Had
for discussion, I just had one quick question.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Natalie, if to do this residential, which I'm not opposed to at all, does that have to be another public hearing, or would it be automatic?
So this, we have had this discussion, it's been, I guess it would be the same as giving permission for one lot, like the last one lot is ag, one lot is commercial, that we've gone through or we're in the middle of our hearing process. And so if we're rezoning it to something, we're giving permission for it to go to residential. I mean, that's being made known, you know what I mean, through this process. So it'd be the same as if it was a request right now for residential. It's just we're saying you can't have it until you meet this condition. So I guess I don't see that as being a problem because we've advertised it. Because it's rezoning to estate. If it were rezoning to residential, it'd be the same. It's a rezoning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Buckley,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Rohr,
Yes.
Wald,
Yes.
Zachmeyer,
Yes.
Kist,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion passes. Natalie, item number 4, I believe.
I'm going to refer you to your packet because this is a lot of text on an overhead. So our next item is a draft of a land use code amendment to section 5-310 data center, or not an amendment, adopting that section, new. So the Planning and Zoning Commission did review a draft at the February 25th regular meeting. There were some slight changes that were recommended. Staff did make those changes. So specifically, and I guess for everyone in the room, just so we understand the lay of the land. So currently, at this moment, Morton County has a moratorium on data center and cryptocurrency center development. So if anyone were to apply right now at this moment, we wouldn't process their application because we have a moratorium in place that has been in place since September of 2024. And the reason for that moratorium was so that we had time to adopt standards to guide how that use would develop in Morton County. So what we're reviewing right now is not a development application. The county has not received any development application for a data center of any kind. Any developer probably is very aware that we have a moratorium in place right now. So this is a review of the standards for that use that the county would adopt in general in our land use code to apply if and when any developer would make an application to Morton County. So just so we're clear, we're not reviewing an actual development application. No one has applied at this moment. Of course, everyone knows an application could come in anytime, and I think everybody has an idea of where it would be. But just so you know, we're not actually reviewing a development application right now. It's what standards would apply to that. So just so we're clear.
Madam Chairman, just to clarify, we're not here to discuss the pros and cons of
a particular location
of the data center. We're not here to talk about that at all.
Right, because we can't outlaw any particular use that's illegal. We have to, in any jurisdiction, you have to find places for any type of land use. You can regulate where they go, you can limit where they go, but you can't say they're disallowed altogether. We can't. So we have to, our best way of going about it is to develop standards so that it develops in a shape and a format that's going to mitigate as best we can the impacts of that use. So.
Thanks, Natalie.
Yes.
So are we allowed to speak on the issue?
There will be a public comment period, so we'll open that up shortly. Thanks.
Okay, so maybe actually, since we have a lot of people in the room, which is wonderful, we didn't have anyone at the last hearing, so for everyone's benefit, I'll just go quickly through
Just
what we
maybe
have.
list off some of the basics.
Some of the basics, yeah. Okay, so we as a county adopted standards for direct air capture use. That was a very thorough process. We had a subcommittee that put that together over a year and a half, a lot of input from neighbors. So that template for that use, we kind of cut and pasted it into this for data centers, and we're just changing a few things that relate specifically to data centers. So any applicant would have to submit a plan for how they're going to measure ambient noise around the perimeter of their property. This is the approach that Morton County took with direct air capture. We would be taking the same approach for data centers. So they have to submit a plan to say, how am I going to measure the ambient noise around my property? And then they have to actually perform that study, have a third party perform that study to measure what is the actual ambient noise level surrounding that property. So if you're by a noisy highway, your ambient noise is going to be louder. If you're in a very removed, quiet area, your ambient noise is going to be lower. And then we have standards for the amount of noise that that data center can produce above that ambient noise level that they measured. So, so they'd have an approach for how they're going to study ambient noise. They would have to have a site plan with a lot of detail in it. They have to tell us how much water they're going to use, how they're going to get it, a confirmation from that water supplier, whoever it might be, whether it's trucks, whether it's a well, whether our rural water system cannot support industrial uses, so it would not be the rural water system, but they have to get a letter from a water provider validating that they can provide the amount of water that the project would need to use. We also would need to have a letter from a power provider or providers validating that they can supply the amount of power that the project is proposing to use, among other things with the site plan. Natural gas, if they're going to use natural gas, again, validation from natural gas provider that they can provide the amount of natural gas that the developer is going to use for that project. They would need to provide number of vehicle trips per day, proposed for both construction phase and operations phase. Operations would be much smaller, so construction phase, proposed haul routes, emergency operations plan, stormwater management plan, a letter from Department of Environmental Quality from the state stating whether any permits are going to be required for DEQ, letter from Dakota or North Dakota Department of Water Resources stating whether they would require any permitting from the applicant for that project. So we would be preserving, we asked for a 3-mile radius for carbon capture, and so we preserved that for this use in terms of notifications for folks to be aware that an application would come in, so that notification radius would be 3 miles unless we change that. What we would require is that data centers would have to be housed in a permanent structure, so if anybody wants to bring in mobile units, shipping containers, that's not allowed, maybe because eventually we probably do want to have standards for smaller scale data center, but for right now, we decided at the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, we just want to deal with big scale data centers for right now, because it gets very picky and detailed when you get into how to site and standards for smaller facilities. So it would have to be in a permanent structure. It would have to have a closed loop system, which I think most data centers now are going to, so they're not taking water in and shoving it out. They're recycling water for cooling within the facility, so that would be required. All the light coming from this facility would have to be directed towards the ground, so it's not open and going up or just emanating wherever. It'd have to be directed to the ground. That's pretty standard for all of our rural and industrial and commercial uses. Let's see. Pretty standard things. Setback standard, we preserved, so for a laydown yard, our standard for other uses has been a half-mile setback to any residence for a laydown yard, because that's noisy, very busy during construction phase. And then standards for ambient noise, again, similar to carbon capture facility. 3 decibels above that average ambient baseline. So again, they established that ambient baseline, and we would allow 3 decibels above that, which actually is not, that's the amount that's just barely perceptible to human ears. You know, 3 decibels, you can barely tell the difference. So that would be where an the property boundary of where an occupied dwelling would be present. 5 decibels above that average ambient baseline at the boundary of a city, county, state park, or property boundary where there's a church or other public building in active use. And then 7 decibels above average ambient baseline at the boundary of a non-participating property where you don't have a house. So a little bit more decibels where you just have land and not a house. We do have standards for limiting construction hours, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. And developer agreement, we would want to, so we reserve the right to enter into a development agreement with that developer, especially because if you have hundreds of people coming in during construction, if they're going to make, I guess from staff's perspective, my thought was more so about housing. If you're going to bring in and create some kind of housing, let's create permanent housing that can help the community as opposed to just bringing in trailers. So we would have a discussion about that. And then road standards, which is the same for all big projects. They have to evaluate or document condition of the haul route before they start. They have to maintain it during construction, and then they have to bring it back to pre-construction condition at the end of construction. So whatever impact they make to the roads, they have to fix and at their own expense, and enter into a road use agreement with the highway department. And then getting into reclamation. So we had this discussion, this is what changed from last meeting to this meeting, with some details about reclamation. So it was discussed, instead of just requiring reclamation to be pull tanks out of the ground, remove any kind of discharge, water discharge, and fill in ponds, things to do with the land. It was, the direction from P&Z Commission was that they would also have to reclaim structures, which is, it's a huge structure. So that's the approach. If you're gonna do a project, you need to also bond to reclaim your structure as well. So we changed that to 150% of the engineer's cost estimate. So we brought that down from 200, but that they have to adjust for inflation and reevaluate that engineer's cost estimate every 5 years.
And submit, right?
So that's what changed from last time. That's on page 10 under reclamation. So it's R2 is new. So that was kind of the only change from last time.
Right, and that's the majority of the highlights, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
If anybody wants to read it, it's online. If you haven't looked at it and read it, if you have comments, please take some time to read it. We've all read it more than once, I'm sure. And so if you're interested, it's a good read if you want to take a nap. So just please take some time to read it if you have any comments, because it's going to go through Another hearing, of course, at the next county commission meeting if it gets moved on from here tonight. So
Right.
I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, I was gonna point that out too, that it'll go to the county commission meeting, which will be on
April 9th.
April 9th.
I mean, unless we have massive changes to it. If there's a ton of changes tonight, then we would bring it back to P and Z in April. But I mean, if it's not much of a change, then we would probably potentially bring it straight to county commissions.
It's just surprising that we're talking about April already.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for Natalie real quick before we open up any hearing? I don't see any, so with that, I'm gonna make a couple statements. If you could please, keep your comments brief. We will be limiting you to, at the maximum, 3 minutes. And if I do get close, I'll probably hold up my finger like this to let you know that you're getting close. I know that there's a lot of people in the room and they're very concerned. And the other statement I wanted to make was we are not the only county with a moratorium. Our neighboring counties, for the most part, do have moratoriums as well. And with that, when you do come up to the podium, if you would state your name and some kind of relevance to the project or the ordinance. That's the word I should use.
And I'm going to read, because I had a couple people write me that they couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to read their statements. They're short.
This conference will now be recorded.
So this is from Greg Westberg of St. Anthony. He says, I'm a resident of St. Anthony and I'm totally opposed to any proposed AI building being built in St. Anthony. I believe that the majority of residents want our town to stay small and rural. That was his statement. Another statement from Dawn Shepard. She said, data centers are huge. The laydown yards for the materials needed are huge, much, much larger than would be needed for solar or wind or other construction projects. And the noise and air pollution and annoyance from the traffic would be astronomical. I've watched this during the years-long construction in the Ellendale area and what people living almost a mile from this are going through. Their quality of life is destroyed and the value of their homes becomes zero. They are stuck. The laydown yard distance with the data centers needs to be a mile from any non-participating resident, as opposed to a half mile that we have.
Right. Thanks, Natalie.
Yeah.
So if anyone would like to speak, please come up to the podium and I will give you 3 minutes.
I'm Tim Spellman. I'm a degree engineer in electrical and civil engineering. I've worked for MDU as an electrical engineer for them, as a civil engineer for them. I've done pipelines. I've worked for the state as an inspector for the Public Service Commission, and I was asked to take a look at this and what's in front of you. And this proposal is a wonderful thing that you're doing. All this is doing is giving you the information you need to make a final decision on this. It isn't assuring that you're actually building it where it's going to be or proposed to be. What this is a proposal. It's the first one in the state. It was put together by a bunch of state organizations with an AI data center company and with utility companies. There was an informed thing with a proposal for a guidelines for which them to follow to construct this. And just to give you some kind of idea of the impact of this Morton County itself, all the assessment of all the property in Morton County is $3 billion. When you build a AI center, the total value is somewhere between $3 to $4.5 billion out there. So just building that one building where it's at is the same level of assessment of every building and structure, residential, commercial, industrial in Morton County. So that's a big thing when it's coming, and it's kind of scary that it's coming, but if they do things right, and this is all set up as a nice guideline for a proposal for us to address this as adults out there. So that's as much as I wanted to say on that, but I want to cover 2 issues that are going to come up with this. There's one issue has to do with the closed loop system out there. There's been a lot of people asking about that. It's a cooling system to cool all that data center stuff. And I just wanted to read the benefits of the system is that it reduces water usage so there's going to be less water being used. It increases higher energy efficient, uses less of the electricity and our natural resources, and it's improved reliability for them. The drawback on it is that it has a high initial cost and a little more maintenance than than that system. So, but that trade-off, those costs are all absorbed by them. Meanwhile, that assesses and increases the cost of that, which helps the cost of that facility then is taxed the same as your house, or actually commercial and residential, or commercial versus residential is a different price on that. But I'm just saying that's some information that whatever they're trying to use with the closed system, there's been a lot of questions that could be bad. The second thing they're talking about is noise, and I put together a 3-page sheet on noise I just want to give to them because they're going to need to be aware of that when they make a decision. There's been discussed on these type of facilities that there's a humming noise, and there is a humming noise, but they say it's such that you can't hear it more than 2 miles away. But there is what they call mediation measures. There's ways they can stop that noise so nobody hears it. And if there is the hum, which is talked about, it's a low bass-like noise, just so you know that exists. But the data I can find says the maximum it would go is 2 miles away. We're looking at a three-mile thing, so everybody gets some feed input on that when it is deciding to be done out there. But I wanted them to be informed when they took for some criteria on noise, that they're aware of it before they go, that I'm going to hand as a handout at this stage for these planners. So
Time's up.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Say, Tim, could I ask Tim questions?
Sure, you
Or
can ask
no?
him one question.
Just one?
Yeah, well, 1.5.
Well, how often do they have to purge the dirty water that's in your closed system? Because
I
there
wouldn't
will
have
be-
an answer for that. Those are questions you guys are going to have. But a closed loop system, they use the water over and over again. And what happens is there is evaporation on that issue. And there is a possibility, depending where the water comes, if they should drill a well for it. Or if they drill a well, there's a possibility of drawdown on that. That's where I suck so much water here, all of a sudden my neighbors' wells don't work anymore because they've dropped the water table. Now, that is something to be addressed. The county is already aware of that and is looking into those, is aware of those issues already. These people have already some of them have went to Ellendale to look at that facility out there already. So there's never been a more prepared county, in my opinion, with all
Thanks.
I've been in the
Thanks,
state
Tim.
with that. So, there we
Thank
go.
you. Second call for public hearing.
I have a comment online.
Sure, go ahead.
My name is Janelle Mormon. I live in Glen Ullin. I just had a comment and some things to maybe help keep in mind. As these projects continue to keep coming up everywhere, now we have the ability to make it a little bit more difficult for them to have it so easy. North Dakota is an agricultural state, but at this rate, I'm not sure how much longer we will be able to say this. And I hope we can agree that we shouldn't have to make special accommodations for data centers or whatever it may be to make it more profitable or appealing to them. We shouldn't have to make it easier for them and harder and more inconvenient for the landowners around the projects. We would have to see them, we would have to hear them. I ask that you keep the landowners in mind as you create or adjust the criteria on this permit. And if the criteria is unappealing to a data center project, that's on them. We have the ability to withstand the integrity of North Dakota and side with the landowners, make sure they are taken care of and have more say than an out-of-state or an out-of-country company. These companies are not very forthcoming when it comes to information to the public, and the public deserves more information and what they can expect. You know, rules and regulations continue to come up. And this is a great opportunity for us, you as the committee and us as landowners, to make it more difficult, I guess, in a way, or make the criteria more fitting for the landowner. When the criteria can benefit the agriculture in our state that is used to feed the entire country, you know, ag land is dwindling, and what will be left when these projects keep coming and passing through? Eminent domain will rear its ugly head when there becomes a need for more power or more energy, and if we continue to pass all of these projects, we are toying with landowners having absolutely no say. So I just ask that we maybe even make those regulations a little bit farther, you know, 5 miles or 2 miles. When we continue to hear, well, it fits the criteria, but the landowners are struggling and unhappy, let's fight for the landowners and the public. Thank you.
Thanks, Janelle. Would anyone else like to come up to the mic?
Good evening. My name is Susan Beeler, and I'm a Mandan resident, and I've lived in Mandan since 1992. My question on, I'm for progress. I like to see things developed, and this is a new and exciting frontier, and it's probably going to come no matter what we do. But what we need to do as a county is be smart, and our people in our county need to be educated, and what we have is a lack of transparency and education on the part of the public knowing what these data centers are really going to mean to us as a person living in the county. You mentioned P&D Commission. I have no idea what that is. Okay.
P&Z, Planning and Zoning.
Okay,
That's us.
P&Z, okay. So when you abbreviate something, then there's questions. It's
Yes.
like, I was hearing P&D. Okay. And then there's nothing in this here about an application fee. Is this going to be the same as building any other kind of commercial property? Is it zoned as commercial? Is it zoned as a data center? Is it zoned as industrial? Can there be a new category for data centers itself? And the noise study, to me, the noise study for people that are close by, that's going to be a real issue, or people having to drive and commute by an area like that. My concern as traveling across the country has been in areas I've been in where I hear discussions where people's electricity or their utilities have increased because of these data centers coming in. How are we going to mediate that? Is that a planning and zoning issue, or is that a county commission issue? So there's different questions that the public needs to really get information, and I think that starts with our public servants to tell us about this. We only can speculate, and so there's a lot of questions about that. With the housing, I encountered this my travel just recently in Texas. I was going through Texas, and I also knew I was going to be stopping in Abilene, Kansas. So I thought, oh, I'll stop in Abilene, Texas. Anyway, I wanted to book a room. A Holiday Inn room was over $400 for one night. And another room was $300. And I'm thinking, what is going on in this community? So I Googled it. They're building data centers around the Abilene, Texas area that has now taken up all the rooms that were available for people that are traveling through the state. I didn't stay there.
10 seconds.
So those are questions that, as a person of the public, concerns that we have and we might not even know we have, need to be addressed. And I think as commissioners and planning and zoning, and as the county commissioners, those are, you can be our go-to people.
Thanks, Susan. Natalie, do you think you could answer a couple of those?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure there's gonna be more questions that are similar, so I'll just
Yeah.
provide some answers. Okay, so our ordinance, the way, or this draft, the way it's written, data center application would, like a data center could go in either industrial or ag zoning, but it would have to be by a special use permit no matter what, because it's such an impactful use. So no matter where they would want to locate, they're gonna have to come here for a review and approval by the county, by the Planning and Zoning Commission in the county. So speaking to electricity rates, this is such a huge concern. It's everybody's concern. At the last, I said this kind of at the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, but I'll reiterate. Last legislative session, there was a bill that went through or got reviewed for the Public Service Commission to provide a certificate of site compatibility for data centers. So in other words, the Public Service Commission would have to review any application for a data center and review its impact on the grid. But it was just, I was reminded today that, again, the Public Service Commission only regulates public utilities. They don't regulate co-ops, and they don't regulate utility providers from out of state. So if you've got power coming in to serve a data center that might be coming from out of state, or it's provided by a co-op, they still don't review that. And we at the county, I can tell you, we are not equipped to evaluate the impact of that kind of electricity use on the grid. We have no capability of doing that, and I would venture to say the Public Service Commission, they're better able, but still it's challenging. So the reality is, this is uncharted territory. There are impacts. I don't think we get to some kind of answer where it's satisfactory. I mean, I'll just be very honest. It's at least if you require, like we would be doing, that the applicant has a power agreement with a utility provider, or they're making their own power. I guess that's the other thing. I mean, we could change the ordinance and say, if you're gonna put in a data center, you must provide your own power. You know, you're gonna have a power plant next to it that's gonna be even more noisy and more impactful. I mean, that's one route that you could go. So something to think about. It's just, it's so much bigger than even what we can regulate at this level. It's just the fact of the matter. It's a crazy world we live in.
Right, Natalie, and then those rates are generally set by the local co-op and or, you know, like Basin Electric will come in and help with things. And Pam did give us a letter right before the meeting. I'm sure it will go on will go in with the packet.
I can put it, she had provided it so late in the game. I said, I'm not taking anything past noon. If people had it, just bring it to the meeting. Because, but if it, I mean, certainly when it goes to county commission, I can roll in everything.
Roll it into
that
the next packet?
Yes,
Okay.
yep. Or if it comes back next month, I will put it in.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
probably a good thing.
Okay, I think that was all the questions for now.
One thing that Susan did ask about, like, what do they do? What does a data center do? If all of you have one of these, and you think about the cloud, they store all that information. So when I go on Facebook and Meta, I'm searching for something on Meta or Google, that information is stored there. So when you think about these data centers and you use your Google on your phone, or you use your whatever on your Android or whatever, that's what's in those data centers. And I don't know if Andy went, but I know I toured the one in Ellendale.
Yep, I toured it.
And Natalie did, and I know Nathan did, and so it was
And
a very.
Commissioner Morrell.
And Commissioner Morrell, we had a very eye-opening experience, so.
It's kind of like going to the coal mine. It's like the scale is just, it kind of blows your mind.
Yeah, so.
And to speak to the permit part of it too, when we get a permit like that, it's gonna be this big. So it's a lot of information that we have to digest. Go ahead, Pam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the Commission, for the record, my name is Pam Geiger. I'm here this evening as the Secretary Treasurer of Morton Grant Sioux Electric Cooperative, which serves Morton, Grant, and Sioux counties. While we're not here to take a position whether data centers are good or not, we find that it may be helpful for you as the commission working on this matter and the general public to hear a little bit about our position and what we're doing for the communities that we serve. So I thank you for this chance to read into the record the letter that I shared with you this evening. Morton Grant Sioux Electric Cooperative is ready and equipped to serve additional electric load if county commissioners and the public are prepared to move forward with any large load development in our area. We are serious in our responsibility to plan, build, and operate a reliable electric system that supports economic growth while protecting the interests of our existing members. Any consideration of new large-scale development must be approached carefully, transparently, and with long-term impacts in mind. Large power users such as a data center require significant infrastructure investment. That's why Basin Electric Power Cooperative, who's Morton Grant Sioux's power supplier, their large load program is structured to ensure cost responsibility does not fall to our existing members. Under this program, large load customers are required to pay for any infrastructure necessary to serve their facilities. This approach prevents the financial burden from shifting to Basin's existing membership or to our local cooperative members. By requiring the cost responsibility from new large load customers, Morton Grant Sioux and Basin Electric can support responsible development while maintaining fair and predictable rates for our current members. This framework allows growth to occur in a way that protects reliability, preserves the local investment, and ensures that economic development benefits the region without creating unintended costs for the community that we serve. So thank you for your time, Madam Chair.
Yep, thanks, Pam.
Hi, Commission. My name is Alex Berger. My wife, Kelsey, is right back there. You know, we say that there's no proposed data center or anything like that, but I can say for certain that I have neighbors that have received offers on their land for data centers, and so I won't get into hypotheticals, you know, if it was there, if it wasn't there, but, you know, my home would be within a quarter mile of where this data center is going to be built. And it would be absolutely detrimental to my family. I mean, I have 2 young daughters and we're expecting another one, and I think there needs to be something in here that says that there can't be a home within a certain amount of, you know, a certain distance of the actual structure, not just the staging area for construction. So it's just, I don't know. I think there needs to be something in there for that, and thank you for your time.
Natalie, if you could address that one.
There's so much to explain in the ordinance, so I'm going to cover them as they come up. So essentially so when I was talking about, they measure their ambient, and then we're talking about decibels above ambient. So the part I skipped over is the developer would have to model the sound that would be produced when their facility is running at full capacity. And so they have consultants that model these things, you know, for sound, and they would have intervals that they have to cover, you know, 3 decibels. We used to have 5, it'd be 3. You gotta, your intervals have to be 3 decibels out, so they couldn't, so the setback, so there would be a setback, but it's dependent on how the model goes. So if the model is going out 2 miles to get to only 3 decibels above ambient, then your setback is 3 miles. And so either they'd have to buy up that land, which, I mean, that might sound ridiculous, or they'd have to mitigate and put mitigation measures in their plan. So the idea is for them to understand what is around them, so that, because they have an idea of how much sound they're gonna produce. They don't know exactly till they do the modeling, but they would have to have some idea that a quarter mile is gonna be too close, probably.
Is there any,
Can you come back to the mic, Alex?
Is there any Google search that I've done, and you probably shouldn't believe everything you see on the internet, but anything will tell you that there is certainly some proposed long-term health risk of living within a certain vicinity, cardiovascular stuff, just based on the pollution that these things, throw off with their diesel generators and everything. So, it's all about, how far away everything is. Is there anything that talks about that, of how much pollution these things are putting off?
So, data, good data takes years to establish, especially when you're talking about health effects. And I'm not saying they're not there. I'm not going to claim they're there or not there. It's just, we've had this discussion about, like the carbon capture facility. We have had this discussion about wind energy facilities. And you can go out there, and if there even are studies available, which data centers are so fairly new that you're probably not going to even have a bank of data studies that have been funded to even look at it. And even if you do have those studies, you're going to find probably, because it depends on who's funding them. If you're funding it to try to find a result, you're going to find that result. If you're funding it to not find that result, you're going to find that result. So you probably are going to have just as many studies that say one thing as the other thing. And it took decades to establish that cigarettes cause cancer, even though we knew that long before that was established. So I'm not saying it's not a valid, it's a valid concern. It's just we're never going to get to the bottom of that in a data focused manner.
Thanks, Natalie.
Tim, come and sit close, Tim.
Amy Fleck, City of Mandan. One thing I'd like to understand or have explained is what is the economical opportunity for Morton County? What is the startup revenue for the county? Is there proposed tax exemption for a period of time? And what happens if Mandan annexes the data center? Is it an economic loss for Morton County, and how so?
So it's a good question. The city isn't going to annex something unless it's very close in, because annexing means providing water, sewer, all the city services. So if this were going into Morton County, it's in all likelihood not going so close in next to Mandan. If it were going to go into Mandan, it'd probably be well inside Mandan, and we're not going to be fighting about it, Morton versus the city. And so there's no severance, like with energy production, oil production, you have a severance tax. There's no such thing with data. You're not severing data. It's just the building. It's the value of the structure, which is no small thing. It's 300,000 square feet or more. It's a big, significant building that gets taxed on the value of that structure, but we're not taxing equipment inside. So the value of it is the value of the taxable value on that structure. Yeah, and we don't have, Morton certainly doesn't have any kind of tax break or incentive structure. I don't even think we have that at a state, level. I guess I don't know, but I have not heard, I know other states, there may be, that kind of incentive structure, but I don't think we have one.
Natalie, I did hear Applied Digital on an interview, and they were asked that question about tax exemptions, and they said they don't ask for them, is what he said. Now, I guess he said that publicly, so I assume that they don't.
Would you give it? We can.
We can, but we probably wouldn't.
I would hope not.
So.
Thanks, Amy. Oh, we have a comment or a question back from our moderator.
We do have a comment online
Do you want to pull it up and I'll see if I can see it from here? Otherwise, I'll go back there. Okay. In the, just the moderator, please make, oh. Oh, I will have, oh, the big long thing.
Oh.
I'm going to go back there. I can see it, but yeah. This is much easier. Okay. Under application materials, part 2, letter E, does not state, like the DAC or solar ordinances state that letters of acknowledgement from all parties that hold major infrastructure easements, such as oil and gas pipelines similar on the project, letters should state support for, opposition to, or neutral stance on the proposed project, and list any concerns regarding impacts of the project on existing infrastructure. Can this be added? Yeah.
I thought it was in there.
Is it in there?
I thought it was.
Yeah, I thought, I don't feel like I specifically took that out, but that was we'll look.
What was the section?
Yeah, can you read, just yell it? Just the section. Thank you. Part 2. The location of existing proposed water line. Oh, I feel like we had to take that out for direct air capture too because we didn't want opposed, neutral. It was asking too much. I think we had that discussion.
But I think we moved the coverage for that down to 3, well, not 3, but you listed off all the letters earlier that we were looking for acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement, right.
So like 12, 13, 14.
Setback.
Natalie, didn't we change that so that like they had a period that they could provide? We had to like, applicants had to show that they notified the easement holders, but we didn't ask for those easement holders to provide an opinion.
That's exactly what it was, and I think it is, yeah, that's a good point. I will look into that. I'll make sure that well, and I mean, the commission, you can tell me, but I'll make sure we preserve that. And we're not asking for their opinion, we're just saying, here's your chance to provide
Right, because
input.
I think our discussion ended up with, what if you can't get a hold of somebody?
Oh,
You've
right.
done your due diligence,
Right.
and you've gotten hold of them 3 times.
And they still won't provide.
Still won't answer you.
Yeah, okay, so that's why it's left out.
Is that maybe what it was?
I think that's what it was. Because basically, so Dawn, I basically cut and paste from direct air capture and then modified for data centers. So if it wasn't in here, it's because we didn't keep it in the direct air capture part.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Dawn.
And I believe Tim wanted to go next.
Yeah, Tim Michael from Glen Ellen. And I'd like just a little, because I'm not very up on this, is ambient means that that's the average noise, and then it'll be 3 decibels higher. So if I live a quarter mile away from one of these things, can I hear a metal lark? That's what I mean, how quiet is it going to be? And I have some property in Nebraska. In Nebraska, the governor, they're putting in legislation now, and it's in their legislature that it's Bill LB 1261, that any data center has to provide their own power, because the electricity they don't want the electricity on their citizens to go up. So if if the data center is going to get built, they have to provide their own power. They can't take it off the grid. That's in it's going in the legislation right now, and I don't know if it's passed yet or not. I think it's called the Google bill. And the next thing is, I'm just like that young fella there. A big thing is going to get built by my place. You guys don't know about it yet, but the surveyors are running around with their 4-wheelers like gangbusters the last 3 days. They don't build an ethanol plant in Glen. And I talked to Jack a little bit about it. I'm 400 feet from the property line of this thing that's going to go up. You know, they've contacted me twice, and they said if the dirt's good, it's going to get built. But they're sort of doing the dirt surveys or whatever they're doing now. And my concern is the noise and the smoke from the cooling towers in the wintertime. This place is going to take 1,800 gallons a minute of water,
And I think I looked it up last night. It's an 18-inch pipe of water has to get evaporated into the atmosphere continuously. So there's going to be, so those are concerns of me, and I'm sure it's with these AI centers too, of all the water evaporation and all this noise. Because I've lived here 45 years, and now I'm going to have to do what? I'm getting ready to retire, and I won't be able to sit outside and play Frisbee with the dog and listen to the meadowlarks. I'm just not very happy.
Thanks, Tim.
Hey everybody, my name's Terry Efforts. I'm with Tech ND and also the Data Center Coalition of North Dakota. I have some written testimony here. I'm sorry, Natalie, I didn't get in earlier. I hear there's a big need for education out there, and I'll stick around, and anybody who wants to talk to me, we can have a conversation. So I just want to go through a couple things about what's in the code here, and thank you, Commissioner Tomac, and everybody else for your time. So we represent all of technology in North Dakota. We're a technology trade group. We have government institutions, we have cities, counties, we've got energy companies, we've got data center companies, all sorts of people that are included with us. The model ordinance that we have here it's a great start to get away from your moratorium because industry is coming anyway. And so I just want to address a couple of things. I was part of that task force that was talked about, that Tim here said about coming up with a model ordinance. This does follow a lot of that, but it does move away in just a couple of different areas. So I do just want to point out to the commissioners that I would take a look at any legal risk that comes up from the automatic suspension of the permit. Also possibly some practical challenges and a couple economic downsides if you don't adopt something. So when it comes to unequal treatment, there are a couple of things that are different than other places in the code that I saw. As far as county notice, like a CAFO needs half a mile. Thank you for cluing me in on the carbon capture. I found out about this hearing at 8:30 this morning, so my research isn't exactly how I wanted it to be. The construction noise portion of this land use code doesn't seem to follow the rest of industrial construction. I think normally Morton County uses a general nuisance and daytime standard, and this one limits it to certain hours. So I'd maybe look to just see that you're keeping it standard with any or other sort of industrial construction that's going on. There are a lot of things listed in here that are already handled by DEQ and Department of Water Resources and some federal agencies. And so it could result in one of those issues where you have somebody that wouldn't respond to you because they're saying, well, why are we going to respond to them at this point when we're going to have to do a full review of this project anyway? There's realistically a couple of things that I worry about just being enforced as far as a noise study is concerned. If you'd have to do a noise study and the neighboring property doesn't want to let you on their land, could they functionally stop the property just because they don't want some noise study to happen on the abutting land? So that's a question that we would have. Neither the developer nor the county can really require that access for a noise study, so it's something to think about as well. The drafting of data center on the last page, I'm worried about. When I read that, and especially from the Tech ND standpoint, I think that could include some larger offices and large healthcare facilities and banks. You know, when you look at just what that definition is, it seems to be a little broader if you've got one of those other large facilities that isn't specifically flagged as a data center. The other provision that you might want to look at is on page 9, M2. It says all roads instead of saying the roads contained in the road use agreement. And so when you read it, from my mind, it says, hey, this data center company has to repair all the county roads, which if you can get that done, kudos, because I mean, everybody wants their roads to be good. So the one thing I would notice about the reclamation bond requirement, this one seems really strange to me because data centers are not used for extractive purposes like mining. Oh, yep, 1 minute. Okay. These are permanent buildings that can be sold, and so it's not how they're regulated in a lot of other areas. And then the e-waste requirement, I would put disposed of instead of produced, because otherwise you'll be able to stop them from reselling or donating their equipment that's in there. To answer some of these questions, the closed loop cooling system, if it's properly maintained, does not have to be purged. It's like your car radiator. The generators, diesel generators, are used for backup. The ratepayers in Ellendale, they've gotten $15 million back in the residential area in the last few years. Noise levels as well, we went through a whole process on that. And I'll end with this and then stick around if anybody has actual questions about the facilities themselves. You know, cattle might smell like money, But a well-constructed data center built under reasonable county ordinances sounds like tax revenue. Ellendale collected more in the first 2 months of this year than what they budgeted for the entire year. So there's lots of opportunity out there. Again, I'll stick around if anybody out here has any questions for me.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Dennis Carlson, lifelong resident of Morton County. I'm not taking a position either for or against the data center. I think there's a lot that we need to discuss between now and when that would actually happen. I would take a little bit different look at the previous speaker. I don't think the people here need to be educated. I think we need to be informed. And it's really about transparency. And when I listen to some of these talk shows, I'm hearing about a lack of transparency in some of these. So I had the fortune of working with Grid United, and I represented the landowners along with other landowners. And it was really encouraging to work with a company that was all about trying to do what was right by the citizens of the county and the citizens that would be on that line. And I hope that the way they did things, and of course that's not a done deal yet, but the way that happened, I would hope that these corporate, and I've been on the other side, I've represented the Fortune 100 corporation, but in these types of things, but I would hope that we learn a lesson that we can come together, we can disagree, but at the end of the day, it's about being transparent and respecting both the corporation, but as well as the landowners. Thank you.
Thank you.
You didn't answer my ambient question. What is ambient? Baseline. What is baseline? I mean, this is what it was.
Afterwards, I can help.
No, I want her to answer it.
Okay, so you're basically trying to establish, like, every day, you know, if you're out at your property, what's the average level of noise that you're gonna hear if you're sitting out there?
Before it ever starts.
Before it ever starts. And to answer Terry's question, so we're not asking the applicant to go on anyone else's property. We're asking them to establish ambient baseline at their own property boundaries. And then the rest, because I get that, the rest is modeled. So, yeah. So there's not gonna be a problem with trespassing or anything like that. Does that make sense? That they go out there, they use sound measuring equipment, they place it, and we say no less than 27 hours. And we say you can't count, you know, if there's noise that's, right, train, plane, you know, that type of thing. So, does that answer your question? Okay.
It's only gonna be three decibels above what it was.
What it was when you started.
When you started.
If you, so, and it's a
At the
little.
property line.
Well, so they measure at the property line to get your average ambient baseline. And then, so that establishes for okay, what is the noise producing capacity of this property at this moment? So that's, let's say it's 40 decibels. So then, when they do their noise study, they're gonna show, okay, how far out does the noise from that project project? And it can't be located in a location where your impact from that modeled impact is greater than 7 decibels above ambient at a neighboring property boundary where there is no home. It can't be above 5 decibels at a property boundary where there's a park, and it can't be above 3 decibels at the property boundary where there's a occupied residence. So I know it's kind of complicated, but we're trying to do that as opposed to put some hard and fast number, because maybe it's louder than that right now. Maybe it's quieter than that right now. You know, we're trying to say what is the noise level right now, so that, you know, if it's loud, again, if it's by a state highway, maybe it's really loud, maybe that's fine because it's loud there, you know, and then they don't have to mitigate so much. Or it's very quiet, so they need to mitigate.
What's the problem with Williston then? They didn't have none of these rules before
They
they
didn't,
started?
nope.
That's their problem.
That was the problem. There were no rules about it, and they just applied and just built it, yeah.
Thanks, Natalie.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kelly Schaff, and I'm a resident of a rural St. Anthony, North Dakota. I would be 4th generation on a farming ranching operation near St. Anthony. that was homesteaded back in 1902. And I think most people in this room are very proud of the history and the peaceful rural setting of St. Anthony, North Dakota. And I stand here tonight, I think, representing the majority, if not all, of the people in the community that are in strong opposition to a data center. And mainly for one of the things of the quality of life that comes with a large data center in a nice rural, serene community that is cherished by nearly everybody in this room. And I know it sounds as progress, but we also know that from the other data centers that went up, some of the problems that have occurred. I know in Williston, they're currently, now after the data center is up, there's lawsuits against the data center because of all the proposed, how good it was going to be didn't quite work out. And once the quality of life is ruined and it's there, it's too late. So I think these guidelines are excellent. And I know we just had a sell point that we should make them less lenient. I don't think anybody in here is worried about a bank going up, but we certainly are concerned about a data center that we can hear for miles and maybe many miles away. And how much noise is okay if you're in the backyard with your kids or your grandkids, or you're on a family picnic, or you're sitting outside of Rusty's bar and you want to visit and you've got a loud data center that sounds like a roaring engine or a dishwasher, whatever level it is. It's a distraction to the community, and it's a distraction to all the people around it. The other thing is there's been a growing population in Mandan that keeps moving south. So there's a lot of property that has potential value over the years, and in future years particularly, to be developed, potential places where people would want to develop homes and residences. However, if you put a data center there, it devalues all the property, not just around it, but widely around it, because it is no longer an appealing place to purchase to build a residential home. So I think anybody that would have land around that data center will have their land greatly devalued as far as the future possibilities of what their property could become worth. And, just recently, there's a meat packing plant coming up in St. Anthony. Well, there again, as businesses grow and housing would come in and work south, they're not going to be an appealing place for people to want to settle next to a large data center that has constant noise, and also it ruins the general rural landscape of the St. Anthony area. And I think it will have far-reaching, it will have a downturn on the value of the agricultural land around it, as far as future places for homesteads or for houses or for any other kinds of development. So I think if you look at it from the big picture, putting it in a rural community, it affects a lot of people. You just heard from here just a bit ago from Alex Berger. He's married to my daughter Kelsey. She'd be 5th generation. They have 2 daughters. We have a granddaughter on the way, which would be 6 generations that have lived in rural St. Anthony. And this would affect them greatly, as it would be a stone's throw away from where they just built a house and secured land to raise their family in a rural setting. So I think there's a lot of downside, and I think the community, at least the majority of the community, would be strongly opposed to this data center in the rural area of St. Anthony. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
I guess what we should ask somebody here, or ask everybody here, is why is AI putting data centers in very desolate, low populated areas? To me, I know why they built the missile sites in North Dakota and South Dakota and Wyoming, because there wasn't many people here. And they're already using AI in warfare, and everybody needs to think about these AI data centers coming in these small communities. I go all over the country, Albuquerque, New Mexico, there's a huge Google centers and Facebook data centers. They're not building them in a desolate country, but AI is, so I think we all need to figure out why they're building them out here.
Thanks, Chad.
Hi, my name is Virginia Ernst, and I'm also a resident of St. Anthony. I just have a couple things. I know you talked about electricity and all that, and I agree with the data centers need to be responsible for their electricity. Us as residents, you talk about it brings in $3 billion. What does that $3 billion do? Sure, it brings in tax money, but how are the residents and the farmers and ranchers benefiting from that $3 billion? If the water comes from any source that you say you don't know about yet, we have an aquifer under our land. It is 10 feet from the surface. The neighbor put up irrigation pivots and couldn't get his pipes hooked up because the water level was so high. And that is the projected site for this plant at St. Anthony if it goes there. The county average for alfalfa is 1.9 acre or ton an acre. Our alfalfa produces 4.5 ton an acre due to the aquifer. If this data center goes in there and takes water from that aquifer, how are they going to replenish that water? And what it reaches for 25 miles, that aquifer, what is that going to do to all the farmers and ranchers that, you know, get benefit from that aquifer? If this data center starts taking water out of there, how is that going to be replenished? And so I did some figuring. If I figure by the county average what we would get off of our hay crop a year, we would lose over $100,000 a year if that aquifer drops. That would take out of our pocket as ranchers and hay producers. Where's our kickback going to be if they take this water away from us? Them are questions that need to be answered, and things that need to be put in there. If they want to take out of the aquifer, the neighbor, his pivots, the water commission, they come in and they test that water well. If it falls below a certain level, they cut him off for irrigating or cut him back so that aquifer has time to rebuild. Are they going to do the same thing to the data center? Or is the data center going to take precedence over the farmers and ranchers that live there? Them are just some of the questions that I have. I know they talk about it produces jobs, but on an average, by the time them small data centers are done and they're built, there's only 8 to 15 people at the small data centers, maybe 20 at the medium-sized data centers. All the workers that come in to build these, they're not local people, they're out-of-state people. And so if you can guarantee that the electricians, the concrete workers, and people from Morton County get precedence over out-of-state contractors just because their bid might be a little higher, then maybe people would be more apt to accept something like this. So them are just some things that I think that need to be addressed and maybe put in the, you know, the bylaws or, you know, the amendments to the restrictions and requirements. Thank you.
Thanks, Virginia.
Just to the aquifer issue, so anytime somebody is gonna needs to draw out of the aquifer, they have to get a permit through Department of Water Resources. We don't permit that at the local level. So, I mean, it is the state, you know, someone's permitting it. Do we like what they do or don't do? I mean, I'm sure that's debatable, but it's not our decision at a local level. The state permits those draws out of the aquifers for industrial uses.
Thanks, Natalie.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Carol Two Eagles. I had a company called Indian Made Products Incorporated, and we've been a North Dakota point of pride since 2000 when we started. I've lived and worked all over the United States and Canada before I established Indian Made here. And I've seen the kinds of things that happen when there aren't sufficient strictures on what a big corporation can do. And the people who always suffer are the local people. I've lobbied at the North Dakota legislature since 1997. This is my 29th straight year, interims and sessions. And so I hear a lot of the things, the concerns that other people have. I lobby on grassroots people's concerns. And I have business friends in places where these data centers have been put in, and they had wells that were 600 feet deep, and suddenly they needed 6,000 feet to get water, and the aquifer was dropping. These things have to be addressed beforehand, and nobody should ever believe that it can't happen here, because I guarantee you it will happen here. And there's another thing about this that most people don't think about, but a lot of the data center or the activity focuses on spying on the citizens. It invades your right to privacy. That's in your Bill of Rights in the U.S. Constitution. And you ought to think about that too. It isn't only dollars and it isn't only agricultural land, but Indian Made was started and continues to be, how can I say, successful from Durham, which isn't grown much around here anymore. But when I go somewhere, and I usually am the person who goes, I'm the public face of the company as well as its head. Durham producers come to me and they say, we're looking for somebody to buy our Durham. A man came to me a week and a half ago and he said, I have 1,500 acres of Durham. How much of it can you use? And I told him who to talk to. Because I said, I build businesses, I run businesses, I mentor people in businesses, and I have since I was a little kid. I was a precocious brat. I still am. And no apology at all. But I said, he knows about raising Durham. I don't. I know about aquifers, and I know about the devastation that can happen if you do not plan ahead. It was Benjamin Franklin who said, those who do not plan ahead plan to fail. So thank you for hearing me, and I hope you will, everybody here will give this a considerable amount of consideration and thought. And if anybody has any questions, they can always get a hold of me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commission and people who are here for this meeting. My name is Holly Birch, and I am a resident of Morton County and also a customer of Moore Grand Sioux. And first thing I'd like to do is commend you for working on this prior to this going on, because a lot of places are obviously not prepared, number one. Number two, I think the moratorium is very wise. I think possibly even extending it would be a good idea. A couple of comments from my visits, spending a little time with this document. First of all, I'm not sure, but they are talking about the federal government requiring data centers to produce their own power. Should they do that, there are going to be changes, and your document should probably reflect whether they're going to be getting power from the local cooperative, or whether they're going to be using combustion turbines, which would be natural gas, or diesel, because your fuel type, your fuel delivery system, and the amount of water used will vary with all of those, as well as the noise. And so that's something you probably want to take into consideration. Number two, on the closed loop cooling system, I understand those. They're similar to your refrigeration system, your air conditioning system, and your cooling and heating system on your vehicle, but that heat has to go someplace. What we're doing with that system is we're moving it. We need a way to cool that loop before it goes back to the system. How are we going to do that? Are we going to use an evaporative system, which would require water? Are we going to use an air system? Or are we going to ground source it? If we ground source it, we have to maybe consider having something in our documentation that if there is an issue, they have a plan. For example, I worked at Bismarck State College for 30 years. I was there when the energy building, the NESE building, was built. They put in a heat source ground pump. It does not adequately air condition the 4th floor because they overheated the ground over the time period, so they had to add additional cooling in order to air condition the Bavendick room at the top of the building. So at least making sure that you've got the information that you need if you're going to look at permitting a company. Number 3, when you get to the reclamation part at the end, you discuss the permittee. You should probably consider in some way making sure that if the project is sold or if it is changed to a different use, that transfers in some way. There's nothing about that. If there is a change of hands, does that information apply to the new business that is maybe purchasing it? Another one that you have, first page C, it says description of emissions the project may produce. That's fine. Define them, because after 30 plus years in the energy industry, I can tell you that the federal government and the EPA's definition of pollutants has changed along the way many times. And lastly, there is a comment in here about wastewater discharge. What is their wastewater like? The coal-fired plants, for example, the newer ones, are zero discharge. Can't discharge, have to treat all of it. Are they having a treatment facility? Are they being allowed to discharge? Where is it going? So I would just like to add those things and think that they may be worth your consideration. Thank you so much for allowing us the time to come in and comment on this.
Thanks, Holly. I'm going to make the third call for the public hearing, and if anybody would like to speak online, please unmute your mics and go ahead.
Hello, I am Kendra Wetch, and I'm part of the St. Anthony community. This vicinity will be built around 5 miles northwest of our location. And because of our northwest winds, the noise will be pushed right down to where we live. And according to the government, you guys are supposed to manage your natural resources, but you guys will be going against this because you guys also need to regulate environmental pollution. There's air pollution and water and noise pollution, such as the air pollution. They use backup diesel generators that emit high levels of nitrogen oxides, and those are a group of highly reactive toxic gases made of nitrogen and oxygen. They can cause asthma and cardiovascular disease in the nearby communities. And also cattle are also very sensitive to the smell of diesel, just so it wouldn't just affect us, but also the animals and the wildlife. With the water and noise pollution, the cooling systems can degrade the local water quality, while constant high-volume severe cooling causes significant noise pollution. And with the public health costs, the pollution from these centers is projected to cause significant public health damages like respiratory, cardiovascular, reduced quality of life, mental health issues, water-related health risks, heat-related stress, sleep deprivation, and there's also infrasound sickness, which can cause dizziness, nausea, eye irritation, and those are caused by the fast sound waves of these facilities. There's also carbon emissions, I know how you said you'll trap them and such, but AI centers require intense electricity to operate and cool, often running on fossil fuels and produce greenhouse gas emissions. And greenhouse gas is naturally good and it is essential for life. But when human activities by burning fossil fuels can cause global warming and extreme weather, there's also electronic waste that happens. The rapid turnover of specialized high-performance computing hardware generates significant, often hazardous electronic waste. There's also energy grid strain. They accelerate energy demands, which can lead to higher power bills and threaten transition to cleaner energy by keeping fossil fossil plants online. All these facilities do is increase the local pollution and threaten public health. And I have a question. Just why does mankind think they can change the way of life of Mother Nature intended to be?
Thanks, Kendra.
Good evening. My name is Jared Ernst. I live down by St. Anthony, and I know everybody's talking about it coming in and things like that, but this is just for the moratorium information for what they're required. Couple things. I got friends and I grew up by Ellendale. I got friends and family down there. The 3 miles is not enough. I think the one in Ellendale is 5.5 or 6 miles out of town, and people say it's like their dishwasher running 24 hours a day in their house. So I think that 3 miles should be extended to maybe 6 miles. Also, as far as, is there any wildlife studies? Is this going to impact wildlife at all? That hasn't been mentioned that I know of. The other thing was workers. There is nobody local in Ellendale working on that facility. Everything was out-of-state workers. They put it out to the highest bid. The cement for that facility is being trucked down from Jamestown. There's 114 trucks going down 281 for that cement. If you could make a deal that if it's being built in Morton County, sure, submit bids, but make sure it's Morton County businesses and residents working on it so that it benefits Morton County.
Thanks, Jared.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, my name is Cheryl Freilich. I work for B&I Coal, and I just simply wanted to extend a thank you to all of you. I have been very engaged in the last 2 years in planning and zoning and county commission meetings, legislative discussions, and you all have had some very difficult conversations. And just in watching how other counties have run their meetings and the order in which you've run this meeting and past meetings that I've been a part of is to be commended. So I've worked in HR for 24 years prior to getting involved in government, and I know what it's like to have to make rules and to uphold those rules. And you don't get thanks very often. So I simply wanted to thank you for the job that you're doing. It's not always easy, and recognize that. And just remind everybody that we're here tonight to talk about the ordinance and what that should look like. And again, to Natalie's point earlier, I'm so proud of Morton County, this is where I live, for taking this action before we really start talking about if and when there is a project to be had in St. Anthony or any other part of Morton County. So thank you for your thoughtful work in preparing the land use codes and for the work that you're doing.
Thanks, Cheryl. This will be the final call for the public hearing. We have one more.
My name is Doug Hill. I'm a Morton County resident. I live west of St. Anthony a ways. First of all, I want to compliment people who have put this together. I think they've done a hell of a job. My background with this is I was on the negotiating committee on both the Dakota Access Pipeline and the North Plains power line that's coming through starting next year. I got a lot of experience working with lawyers and reading easements and things. I really think you've done a pretty damn good job of what's going on here. A couple of comments I would make on it. One is there's very little that has been said about reclamation, and your reclamation starts when you start moving the dirt and when the project starts. Dakota Access we agreed on a very novel approach in that the landowners group and those landowners stretched from Watford City to the Missouri River in Morton County. We hired an environmental engineering firm to oversee the stripping of the land, all of the construction, and stockpiling, erosion control, and all of that throughout the whole project. And they're also overseeing the reclamation of the pump sites and everything else. Your statement where you want to put things back to the way it was, there's no documentation and no scientific backing on what that is. You need to establish that baseline so it can be reclaimed to what it was. And an environmental engineering firm could do that for you. I think that's something that you should really take a good look at. The second thing is the transparency. I really like the fact that you're going to notify everybody within 3 miles. I think you should add to that, and also anybody who's going to be affected by any type of easement of a power line, a gas line, a new road, or whatever, even if they're outside the 3 mile. We don't know where the facilities are coming from or anything like that. I again compliment you. I worked for 35 years in the industrial supply business, and we need growth, we need economic development. On the other hand, damn it, it's nice to have a good, quiet, predictable life, and I'm really glad it's you making the decision and not me. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Madam Chairman, my question, Natalie, you've been taking quite a few notes here? Yeah, I mean, there are some good suggestions made, so with the note-taking you've been, and what you've been hearing, is there a need for you to go back and do some revisions to add some stuff here so we can look at things that have been brought up tonight and add it into this particular document?
Yeah, I think Holly's suggestions about a little more detail on energy generation, or just the question in general. I mean, I think that's a question for the commission, and discussion is, because you have, everything's a trade-off, right? If you require a data center to generate their own power, then you have more impacts by the data center, But then, if you, have contracts with, your power providers, that can affect things, larger in the grid. I appreciate that Pam, I think it was Pam, was here, talking about Basin Electric and Morgan Sioux. So that was good that they feel confident they can accept large loads without impacts to ratepayers. So that's good. But I guess, if we were going to make some requirement that a data center has to produce their own power, then we'd have to be more concerned about the details of that power production. But I guess the comment I would make is all the environmental stuff, because there were quite a few comments on that. We don't get to review that at this level. The Department of Environmental Quality reviews that. And so that's why basically what we're doing in our application process for this is we're asking the type of questions of the applicant to say, are you going to need a permit from them? In all likelihood, they will. But just trying to get a handle on what is your means of what kind of emissions you're going to be making, so that we know we need to put conditions and say this is conditional on approval from Department of Environmental Quality, that type of thing. We're not evaluating those environmental impacts at the local level. That's state level. There's so much of this that gets reviewed at the state level. But I think, so that was one thing. Terry, thank you for reading it and making your points. Definition, we could work on the actual definition some more. I don't think it's going to be a huge amount of stuff, but maybe another draft might make sense.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I would appreciate it, after hearing the different comments and hearing different things tonight, to have some of this input in that for our considerations of things you think that would be important to that.
Right. I guess I would just want direction from the board. Again, that's a big question. Do you require data centers to make their own power or not? And just because the question was brought up.
And I know it's been brought up at the federal level to make that happen. It's not there yet. I guess my question would be, if they're going to be generating their own power, are we gonna be stipulating? Because 2 months ago, we talked about how much is too much for wind towers. How much solar panels do you want out there covering the field? Because when that happens, do you want nuclear energy in your backyard? Because those are the options. That's where things are moving to. So, do you want a coal-fired power plant in your backyard? If we require that, that's the next piece that comes with. Because like Natalie stated, we can't stop them from building. We have to give them standards. And so if that is our standard that we set, you have to be prepared for that to come with it. Right. Because it's inevitable. If they want it bad enough, they'll spend the money to do it.
Yeah, and they have to be reasonable standards, because if not, the courts will kick it out.
Exactly.
If it's not reasonable.
Exactly. So those are all things to keep in mind when you we understand it may come to that from the federal level, but a lot of times too, that then falls out of our hands because things get regulated at higher levels than us, and we don't have the say. So if we make accommodations now, makes it more appeasing and a lot easier for us to be able to regulate that at this level without losing control.
Any other discussion?
Could I just ask about, should we put in with the backup generators just an assurance that they are permit pollution? I mean, I know we don't do that, but just that they assure us that they are permit pollutions or whatever.
I don't know what that means.
Well, like if they're diesel, they have to be permitted for generators of that size and that many.
So I know Ellendale, their backup generation system, because of the megawatts it puts out, it would be essentially a power plant and regulated like a power production facility because it was that big, but they got an exemption because it's backup power.
And sometimes they're regulated at the DEQ with the air quality division.
Right, and I think that was, that would have been, I guess it depends on the power provider, again, if it's PSC.
It also depends on if it's behind the meter or
right, or
not.
in front of the meter. I guess those regulations exist without us saying they exist or don't. I think that's kind of tough. That's going to be part of their whole plan. If it has emissions that are enough to warrant a permit through DEQ, then they're going to have to get a permit through DEQ as far as the emissions. So I guess that would be something that.
And those air quality permits are public record also.
Right.
They go out for public comment. So.
Right.
I would be comfortable with whatever the DEQ decides.
Right.
As long as we know that that's what's happening.
Because in other words, that like if the collection of them, if it's going to trigger other regulation, whether it's DEQ or PSC, it'll do that anyway. I guess.
Yeah, that's the other thing is a lot of these things are governed by the PSC and we have no say. Right. So. Any other discussion?
So I guess what I would say, Terry brought up a good point about e-recycling. I had put that in after your comment, Becky, about, e-waste disposal. And so I suppose that's a whole discussion to have, if they're going to be reappropriating that equipment elsewhere as opposed to disposing. But, we can I can rework on some wording, and I'm sure you'll be available. Yeah, so we'll talk about that.
You don't, because we can just continue. But it's a second hearing, do we have to have a motion?
No, I think we can just have direction, bring it, there's some stuff to clean up, and then bring it back in April.
Well, if nothing else, at least it's some language.
Yeah, to change.
One other thing, Natalie, Doug had brought up a good point about setting a baseline for reclamation.
For reclamation, for sure. I took that note. Yeah, okay. I think that's a really good point. To require a survey, and maybe Maybe it doesn't happen necessarily at application phase, because if you're not approved, you don't need to evaluate
Right.
for reclamation, but it's like prior to construction, you need to get this done
I would
before you
say
can get your
something
building
like
permit.
30 to 60 days prior to
Right.
construction.
Right.
Of
Yep.
Or you're not eligible, you're not even eligible for your building
the
permit
baseline
until,
needs to be submitted, and then after that,
then you're eligible to get more.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think, well, I don't, other than just consensus among the board that we're gonna work on it a little bit, and I'll bring it back next month.
Andy, do you have any thoughts?
We can continue the public hearing till the next meeting
Yeah.
and have it as the last item on the agenda.
I think that sounds good. Before we, oh, Jesse, did you have anything? Where did he go?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, thanks.
Madam Chairman, just a quick question. Mr. Hilly talked about increasing the notification. Is our current notifications pretty much consistent with an industrial project?
So our standard for all applications is a half mile, because these projects have big impacts, and the only big industrial use that we have developed standards for in recent years was the carbon capture, and that was 3 miles. So I mean, Terry, I agree that I can't disagree. We should have consistent standards across uses. You know, if we, and like I say, my wish was to create the master ordinance for like all rural industrial land uses, but we're just, there's so many and they're so different, and it, you know, I mean, we could have a moratorium for many more months, and then I can consolidate every single thing, battery, energy storage, all the things, and have the master ordinance where everything matches, and that would be the best way. But if we're not gonna do that, then we should probably preserve, either preserve that 3 miles, or if we're gonna change it, we should also change direct air capture standards as well. I feel like, I mean, I guess, I feel like 3 miles is a ways, and considering we had a lot of people here, I mean, people talk, it's, I don't know.
Maybe it just requires little bit more research.
You mean to say how far
To
out
say
we
if we should or
notify?
not, yeah, to say if we should or not.
Well, and the idea was brought up too during the working group to make the model ordinance, you know, that you don't want, there, it was Applied Digital, their legal counsel. They're saying, well, we don't think it's legal, or we can question this, you know, if you're notifying people beyond the identified impact zone, you know, but you don't know that until they bring you their sound model. So, I mean, that would be a flex. And I don't know if we just say, okay, however, out to whatever ambient was, and I mean, that could be miles. Like if ambient is 38, it could be miles. So then it could be 10 miles, you know, your notification radius. And I don't know if you tie it to that or not. You know, it's like a flex radius. I feel like 3 miles. I mean, we kind of talked about it.
We settled on that with direct air capture.
We talked about it for a while with a long time. I feel like preserving that is not a terrible thing.
But it's not saying that somebody is not going to hear about it that's
Right.
farther than the 3 miles. We're not going to say they can't come to this room and talk to us.
Yep.
I mean, it's.
We're just saying we're sending letters
Yes.
to 3 miles out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and then all these things are always posted.
Right.
So.
And
it's
we do
public.
have our news and project information page on the Morton County website, where I did, and granted, people don't visit that all the time, but I did post, you know, when we had our meeting last month, for those who know to look for it, I do post our updates, you know, if you want to know what's going on or what's upcoming, I do keep, I try to keep that updated. So if you Google Morton County Planning, project, news and project information, there's a page with links, so.
So with that, I think we're done with the data center discussion.
Till next month.
Till next month. I want to thank everybody for coming.
Yes.
We've had another hearing on this where nobody showed up. We appreciate the input, and we also appreciate the I want to say the gentle input.
Or the people have read it. You know,
Yes.
we really appreciate when you read the thing and you're like, how can we make it the best? Because we have to have an ordinance. You know, so if you're going line by line, we very much appreciate your work doing that.
And we've been working on this for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So,
The
it's been a long road.
Yeah.
So with that, I'll do the public comment period. Pursuant to NDCC 44-4-20, members of the public wishing to provide comment are asked to provide their full name, address, and agenda topic in writing prior to the meeting, and I did not receive anything prior to the meeting.
But you can ask for public comment.
Yeah, and the comments that I had received, people just said they wanted to be able to speak, and so I believe they all came to speak.
Okay, so if at this time, if anybody has anything not on this agenda, right? From the previous agenda that they would like to discuss. I'll open the public comment period for that. It's 9:00.
Well, Madam Chairman, I move.
I
Right,
think we
Deputy-
have to have a motion
No.
to continue the public hearing to the next meeting.
Oh, we do?
I believe so.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was saying.
No, I don't think so. Don't I have to do 2 more calls for the
We're in this now,
public
Andy.
comment
Yeah, but I
period?
know, I just didn't want anybody to forget.
And then we'll go back to that. So second call for public comment. Third call, and I will close the public comment. Now we'll go back to number 4.
Madam Chairman, I'd move that we continue the public hearing on the moratorium on
No, not the moratorium.
the
ordinance.
the model ordinance. Thank you, because I'm getting tired too. Yep, until our next scheduled planning and zoning meeting in April 2026.
Second.
Let's see.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Now be the 22nd, right, Natalie?
Okay, April 22nd will be our next P and Z meeting, planning and zoning, sorry. 5:30.